Hello, this is the 5th part of An Untraveled Road by Neon Zangetsu. Link will be in the description. All author's notes have been removed between chapters. Also, any explicit NSFW scene will be removed. This part will cover chapter 26 to 36. Chapter 27. And so winter was born. First of many, that one. You know, she still slips up and calls me big brother sometimes, ow. Don't kick me, Neo. Fine, I'll get back to it. Where was I? Well, shortly after winter came into the world, things got real interesting. Tilda Torquick, future. Protect the child. Interlude. She's adorable. Ooh, let me see. Can I hold her? Cute kid. Hey! Naruto flung up an arm to ward off the crowding faces. Don't crowd Winter. You'll make her cry. Willow hid a smile behind one hand. I don't think that's likely, dear. If she hasn't panicked now, she's likely not going to... Apparently the birth of a child was something of a momentous occasion thing in Remnant, Naruto found. And the birth of a new Schnee, most of all. They had friends and family aplenty these days, and all of them wanted to see the little life he and Willow had brought into the world. Watts and Pietro aside, all of Team STRQ had portaled into their home just for the occasion, as had the Belladonas and James. Even Ironwood was present to bear witness. And miracle of miracles, not needling him with endless questions for once, made him damn proud to be a dad again, and proper protective of his little girl. Penny poked her head over the sofa to peer at Winter. So this is what a baby looks like. Alma joined her. So small. Careful now, Watts chided. I'm sure you wouldn't like it if everyone crowded around you in such a fashion. Quite right. Pietro seconded him. Give the poor girl some space. On that they agreed. Even at only a week old, Winter was a surprisingly stoic child. She stared curiously at the many strangers around her with wide eyes, yet made not a sound. Quietly curious. Those were the best words Naruto could think to use for her. Her suspected that was due in no small part to her heritage. Schnees were a silent sort, until you got under their skin. I'm a grandfather again. Nicholas was certainly the odd man out on that front, likely impact because he was holding Winter at the moment. Such a precious little girl she is. Naruto felt a sudden build-up of chakra and magic from her. He opened his mouth to warn Nicholas. Careful, I think she's about to... Hachoo! Winter wrinkled her nose, then heaved a mighty sneeze. A storm of hoarfrost formed on the old man's face, coating both beard and brow alike in ice. Nor was he the only one affected. Ironwood had lingered a little too close and got a face full of cold air for his curiosity. Pietro wasn't spared either. Standing directly beside Nicholas as he was, the scientist's spectacles cracked clean in half beneath the sudden temperature plunge. Silence reigned supreme. Watts blinked into it. Oh my. Gira tilted his head. Is that quite normal? Tyrion hooted with laughter, clutching at his ribs. Remarkable. Ha! Nicholas barked a laugh of his own, drawing a rare giggle from the girl in his arms. Would you look at that? You're going to be a very special girl, my dear. Special, Willow wrested Winter back out of his arms with a sigh. Yes, I suppose that's one way of putting it. Raven looked at Taiyang. I want one. Summer squeaked. Ray? Where'd that come from? Crow choked on his booze and thumped his chest with a first. As for poor Taiyang, well, the results spoke for themselves now, didn't they? Eh? The baffled blonde brawler balked and backpedaled, looking at Raven like she'd grown a second head. We're not even dating. Isn't this a little too soon? Is it? Raven tilted her head. In the tribe, men appreciated women who spoke their mind. Are you going to bed me or not? Penny raised a hand. I do not understand. What does a bed have to do with any of this? Crow's choking turned to muffled cackling in the background. Kaylee's ears flattened against her head. Please, there are children here. Ty's face went red. This ain't your tribe, and I'm not ready for that kind of commitment. Duh! She clicked her tongue then. Coward. Naruto then. Blood-red eyes swiveled to him. Would you give me a daughter? Now it was his to turn to balk. Birdie say what now? Do I have to spell it out? You. Me. Baby in 9 months. Is that so hard to understand? Willow smiled, blue flames burning in her eyes. That's my fiancé you're trying to solicit? Maybe, Raven shrugged. You haven't married him yet, have you? When's the wedding date, anyway? I see. You must truly have a death wish, then. Willow handed Winter off to a startled summer much to the poor girl's chagrin, and climbed to her feet. Frost flicked from her fingertips, promising a blizzard. Do you want me to kick you around the yard that badly? Try me, Miss Maiden. Raven puffed out her chest. I've been training. Won't be enough, young Cinder chimed at Willow's elbow. You're no match for a maiden. The elder Branwen scoffed. That's rich coming from you, Shortstack. Hey, I'm still growing! Ironwood drew him aside as the duo spat at one another. For once, Naruto let him, grateful for the distraction. Thanks, Captain. Or should I say General? He waggled a blonde brow at him as the older man tugged him toward a window. I understand congratulations are in order. Thank you. James took the praise at his promotion with all the subtlety he possessed, which was to say, none. I know we haven't always seen eye to eye, but I wanted to thank you as well. Well, colour him surprised. For what, exactly? Do I really need to say it? He clasped both hands behind his back and sketched a shallow bow. Ever since you first found your way here, you've been a boon to Atlas. You've changed things. His gaze strayed back to the window and the reflections therein, watching Tyrion and Watts fuss over little Winter, the latter even being allowed to hold her by a watchful Willow. For the better, I'd hope, he grimaced. Not everything. Hazel still escaped while we were away. James pulled a grim face of his own. And he will be hunted down like the mad dog he is. You have my word. Then you're welcome. He could sense the unspoken question lingering between them. There's something else, isn't there? A few things. The headmaster winced. But I'm not sure how to phrase them without offending you. You don't have to walk on eggshells around me. His frown deepened. You say that now. James. Fine. He took a deep breath to steady himself. Exhaled now, and his eyes came to life. How on Remnant did you manage to tame a bloody dragon? The questions came quickly after that. How did you bring her back to Atlas in one piece, never mind hide her away in the wastes? His voice peaked further in distress. How are you even feeding her? We're going to lay eggs. He flung up his arms. Are we going to deal with more of her kind? Whoa, hey. Naruto held up his false arm to ward him off. In order, I'd say luck. Cinder begged me to keep Syrax and loads of fish. As to the eggs, no idea. Hopefully. The Schnee family was powerful enough already with him at the helm. The idea of their descendants being dragon riders amused him to no end. Dragons were sturdy creatures and Syrax was growing quickly. She seemed admittedly fond of Cinder at that. Her wings were strong and her scales sturdy. She'd already proven her worth by beating back a grim attack on Mantle just the other day with her fire. Having her around might well go a long way to colonizing the rest of the frozen continent. It was a strangely pleasing thought. Matters for another time, he supposed. Anything else? The general took a deep breath to steady himself. And then, I know your daughter is a maiden. His blood turned to ice. No idea what you mean. And I intend to keep Cinder's secret. Those steady, steely eyes met his as James finished. You've done good work for Remnant, both here and abroad. I owe you a debt. I would repay that with trust. He offered him a hand, the real one, not the facsimile of steel. If you need anything, and I mean anything all, you have but to ask. Naruto glanced down, frowned at it. You sure about this? James didn't budge. We both want the same thing. Peace on Remnant. For ourselves and those we hold dear. On that they agreed. He reached out the rest of the way and clasped his hand. James squeezed his fingers briskly, an effort he returned tenfold. Thanks. Now I should probably get back to it before Raven ticks off someone else. A hand clamped down on his shoulder before he could leave. Naruto. Don't judge Miss Branwen too harshly. James cast a bemused look over his shoulder, watching a now anxious Raven cradle Winter in her arms while a sullen Cinder looked on. He didn't miss the longing look she gave his daughter, nor did James. From what little Ozpin told me of her, she and Crow suffered from a rather stunted upbringing before they came to Beacon. He's adapted rather well, but as you can see, she still struggles, more than she cares to admit. In their tribe, the rule of the strong applied. She clings to such things even now, as you can see. That was putting it mildly. Him and Raven? Having a child together? Preposterous, wasn't it? Then she should leave me out of it. Trying losing to her then, James granted him a rare wry grin. That'll get her out of your hair. Yeah, no. He shook his head. I'd sooner chop off my other arm than throw a fight. Sides, she'll never let me live it down. He heard Willow spit something acerbic at Raven, who snapped back. Well, he could think of one way to solve this. .0.0. So this was what it felt like to have a younger sibling. Cinder smiled softly as she watched the spectacle unfold before her. Not an unpleasant feeling. To think she'd once dreaded this. Feared it. Hated it. What a fool she'd been. Everyone seemed quite taken with baby Winter. Even Sienna and Roman were cooing over her. As well they should be. She would teach Winter to be a true schnee, even if she hadn't had a chance to hold her yet. Cinder! Father barked at her suddenly. Come here and hold your sister. Your family. Panic! Pride! More panic! She froze, torn between the former and the latter. Sienna nudged her with an elbow. When that didn't work, Roman shoved her forward. Ah! Wait! I'm not ready. Cinder stumbled, righted herself, and quite suddenly found herself holding the little tyke. I'm not... Too late. Winter stared up at her with round eyes. Cinder stared back. In that instant, a bond was formed. She's so small. Family, eh? Cinder rather liked that. Yes, indeed. She liked it very much. Chapter 28. Come to think of it, shortly after Winter was born, the boss surprised everyone. And it was a real shocker, let me tell you, Tilda. Oh! What's that? You want to know, Neo? That's right. You weren't around for that particular bit, were you? Well, I only know what I heard, all right. Stop with the pout, I'll tell you. So anyways, it went like this. Tilda Talkwick, future. Silence is golden. The logistics of raising a dragon were truly staggering. It wouldn't have been possible without the vast resources of the SDC at his back. But thanks to Nicholas, Naruto effectively had carte blanche to do as he pleased. And he had to quite a bit to keep the newest citizen of Atlas content. You see, it wasn't merely the matter of feeding such a beast, although that was also an obstacle, but keeping it housed, happy, and most importantly, warm. Easier said than done in a kingdom full of snow. One also had to keep the beast away from both prying eyes and those who would do it harm. The legends didn't exactly paint dragons in a favourable light to begin with, and this was a very large dragon. On the outside, caring for Cyrax sounded like a logistical nightmare. On the inside, well, that was another matter. Who's a good girl, Tilde? You are Tilda. Yes, you are Tilda. Cyrax shoved her snout into his chest, trilling happily, and lifted her head just so for him scratched the underside of her jaw. Naruto barked a laugh, and did just that. Apparently dragons could be quite affectionate once they warmed up to someone. He'd seen her fed and taken care of for nearly a year and half now, and visited nearly every day. It stood to reason that he would be her favourite. Cinder could give him a run for his money in that regard, but still, point to him. Right. That's enough of that. He gave her a pat just above the nostril. Come on, time for bed. She made an annoyed noise. No. He booped her on the snout. We already went flying earlier. You need to rest. With a low grumble, she rose on her mighty legs and lumbered into the corner of her abode. He couldn't help but note the nesting there. Was she getting ready to lay eggs? Don't get your hopes up. She could be making herself comfortable. He hoped not. Cyrax wanted for nothing. They'd housed her in a massive, well-lit cave heated by natural hot springs and furnished with massive generators to keep her warm. That and hordes of fish besides. High above, the ceiling held a massive mechanical hatch that could Iris open at any time to let her fly free. When closed, it acted as a well-shielded of dome to protect her from Grimm and other ne'er-do-wells. Nothing could hope to harm her in here, not even an Atlesian battleship. He had Watt's personal assurance on the matter. Really, the man might be a robotics genius, but he could build damn good tech when he wanted to. If only everyone else could be so efficient. He'd need to check in on him and Alma tomorrow, thank them for their work. Atlas imported most of its food from the other kingdoms on a good day. As of late, most of those imports included meat. Lots of it. He expected Mistral and Vale would see a marked increase in the coming years that said cleaning up after said dragon proved to be more boon than a bane. For all its outside troubles, he suspected Atlas would see fertilizer boom of its own. Dragon manure was surprisingly potent. Not only did it help crops grow at a ludicrous pace, but it had other uses, things he was loath to speak about. They sold well enough, regardless. A shame none of those uses could get rid of the snow. Atlas just had too much of it, and not enough in the way of settlements. Pietro had come up with the idea of exporting said snow and ice to the other kingdoms, even Menagerie, and while that netted them a tidy profit lien, it still didn't dismiss the problem at hand. Solitas was the most barren continent next to Vacuo. At least the folk there were hardy enough to live on the lands. Atlas just has snow. That and freezing temperatures that could kill you in less than an hour. How did they fix that? Greenhouses? Terraforming? Burn away the snow with dragonfire and build atop the ground beneath? A crude idea, but it had merit. He'd need to talk to Arthur. He always had the best ideas. So many plans, so many ideas. Naruto Uzumaki never would have had the clout or the influence to make them happen. Naruto Shni, on the other hand, all of Remnant bowed to his wishes. It still made him chuckle sometimes. If his parents could see him now, they'd be gobsmacked. There was some quiet irony there, in that he and Willow were still technically engaged and not married. He had a ring picked out and the lines rehearsed in his head. He'd just never gotten around to asking. They'd been so busy, first with the madness in Menagerie, then getting Sirac settled, Winter's birth, it never seemed the right moment. He'd do it today, he decided. Once things were settled here, he'd go to Willow and pop the question. Make it official, you know? One last check on Sirac confirmed she was resting comfortably. The guards at the entrance hadn't made a peep either. All was well then. Sirac was the future of Atlas, and if she laid eggs... His mind ran away with the idea, conjuring a wild image of his descendants riding on Dragonback, roasting hordes of Grimm and searing away the snow. They might even be able to expand Mantle as a whole. Wouldn't that be nice? He had plans for Mantle, big plans, schemes that would see it made the equal of Atlas once more. Perhaps even greater. After all, Atlas could hardly be expected to expand much further than it already had, given that it was a floating isle. Mantle, on the other hand. But those plans hinged on their winged friend here. Sirac liked him and Cinder. He wondered if the same could be said of the next brood. Without warning, Sirac lifted her head in her corner. She warbled a warning. In the same instant, Naruto's sixth sense twitched. Really? Now? Of all times? He followed her gaze and looked upward. Come on out. No use in hiding up there. She can smell you. No movement. They'd hidden themselves very well indeed up there. Camouflage, perhaps. No matter. Naruto whistled. Sirac reared back and inhaled, flames flickering in her jaws. A shadow detached itself from the ceiling and landed hastily behind him. Naruto took them in at a glance. Slim fellow, clad mostly in black, wearing a massive white mask to conceal their visage from him. He considered them for a long moment, idly noting the baton at their hip. Not Hazel, then. This one wasn't quite broad enough in the chest and at least a head shorter. Hazel didn't use weapons either. The man didn't need them. Shame. He would have enjoyed capturing him again after what he and Jacques had nearly done to Willow all those years ago. Might have been fun to break every bone in his body, slowly. Still, this was what, the third intruder this month? Someone was getting reckless. Or desperate. He wasn't sure which. Which one are you? He tilted his head, considering them. A spy from Vale? Mistral? Vacuo? It was possible, he supposed. They'd been fending off espionage teams ever since the madness in Menagerie. People wanted to know what he was hiding out here. I know you're not from the island. They'd never attack me after I pulled them out the fire. Ozpin isn't stupid enough to piss me off. Lionheart is a coward, and Vacuo doesn't give a damn about anything outside of Vacuo. Nah, no answer, of course. Quite all right. He'd expected as much. Any spy worth their salt wouldn't speak. Which means you're probably one of hers. He tapped his chin, considering the man before him as one might a stain on their boot. Am I really making your mistress that nervous? He thumbed his chin and mustered the toothiest grin he could. She can always meet me face to face, you know. I don't bite. A discontent noise. Seemed he'd struck a nerve. Oh, he cooed. Struck a nerve, have I? They lunged at him. Sloppy! A click of the tongue, and then he spun. A spinning kick caught their ribs, sending them tumbling to the cavern floor. They crumpled with a low wheeze and curled inward on themselves. He'd broken all their ribs on that side. All right. He cracked his neck and loped their way. Let's get this over with. I'm entirely too busy today. I can only spare a minute to deal with you. Never should have come here. He took a lazy swipe at them, only for his blow to meet a wall of golden sparks. It buckled beneath his fist, but it slowed him enough for his foe to skitter away. Curious semblance. Made his arm go numb. Electrical in nature, perhaps? Something to study later. You know, it's funny. He shook the tingles out of his arm and waded after them, inexorable. Everyone always thinks they'll be the one to defeat me. But no one's escaped me yet. Come on, then. Let's get this over with. They punched up at him in one last, desperate attempt to stop him. He met them. Their fist collided with his, whamped and shattered. Literally. One punch at full strength was enough to blow their arm clean off at the wrist. Blood fountained forth and they screamed. An awful, ghastly wail as they clutching their wrist and fell to their knees. Such a mess. You'd think they'd know better by now. Meeting him in a contest of pure strength was folly. Still, there was always someone willing to try. He tutted softly, thumbed a stray bit of scarlet from his cheek, then reached down with his metal arm to grab them by the throat. You never learn, do you? He sighed. Who sent you this time? Was it her? Or are you some common cutthroat? They clawed at his hand and kicked their legs, to no avail. I'll never talk? Not to me, you won't. He shrugged a shoulder. They rarely do. On the other hand, Kurama appeared behind him, towering over them both in all his golden majesty, am far more persuasive. Golden claws closed around the assassin and began to squeeze. So let's have us a chat, friend. The spy's screams intensified. 0.0. Raven took her tutelage seriously. It was a matter of pride, really. When Roman first asked, begged really, to be her apprentice nearly 2 years ago, she'd made up her mind. If the little shit was determined to be her student, just as Sienna had become Tyrion's pupil, he would be a good one. No. Great. She wouldn't settle for anything less. He might not be of her tribe in the truest sense of the word, but he had fire, determination, and grit. She could respect that much. Any ward of Naruto's had spirit in spades. And so she trained him. Beat him into the ground every other day, building him stronger. Really, it almost felt like having a child, albeit she got to hand them back at the end of the day. Almost made her want one a brat of her own, you know. She kept dropping hints with Taeyang, but he was being so damn dense these days. That, or he simply wasn't interested in that sort of thing. She'd even tried locking him in a closet with her once, but he'd just smashed his way out. Things had been awkward between them ever since. At least Crow had finally gotten lucky with that bunny girl of his. They'd probably have a little one on the way in a year or two. Summer, well, she knew who Summer favoured. Not messing with that pecking order. If she wanted to try her luck and test her might, more power to her. Which left her the odd bird out, as it were. Naruto, no, not going there. He'd made his stance very clear. Broaching that topic again was a one-way ticket to disaster. She'd need a lot more whiskey before she even considered confronting him again. Maybe some handcuffs. No, he'd probably snap those. Or worse, use them on her. Gods, her face felt hot. Stop thinking about it. Drawing herself up from her bed, she considered her scroll. 7:30. The little shit hadn't checked in. That wasn't like him. Roman was usually pretty punctual. She knew he was nearby. She had a bond with him via her semblance. He ought be in Vale with Nicholas, cutting a dust deal with the old man. Perfectly safe. So why hadn't he responded to her text? Damn brat! She shook her head and pushed herself. Making me work overtime. Omen escaped its sheath with a rasp of naked steel. A quick flick of her wrist conjured a portal, and from there, Raven stepped through and found him standing before a burning house, hat tugged down over his eyes, cane in hand. An ugly black bruise was blooming on his right cheek. He wouldn't look at her. Nicholas sat beside him, shaking ash from his shoulders. He smelled of death. It made her shiver. Ah, there you are. The old Schnee looked up at her arrival, wearing a wry smile. Would you mind cutting us a portal back to Atlas? We've run into a bit of a predicament here, and I'm afraid our scrolls were damaged in the fire. Raven quirked a dark brow. Looks like you had fun. It was an accident on my part. Nicholas tutted softly. I underestimated Roman. He reacted poorly to something. Her pupil grunted once and didn't look away from the blaze. They got away, Nicholas sighed. So they did, my boy, but it doesn't matter. Their lives are ruined now. There's nowhere they can go. Whatever power they once had is shattered. They still have their lives. He rounded on them, eyes wild, face framed by the fire. It lent him a malevolent, almost manic air. We should hunt them down. Put their heads on a spike. The aging Schnee drew himself upright, clutching his side. And whatever would your father say? Roman winced, his fury flickering beneath those words. The boss would understand. Would he now? Arson can be explained away, but murder? I think not. Raven's curiosity finally got the better of her. Why is he so pissed off? Well, you see, we had a bit of a predicament. Willow's father shifted just so, raising his cloak and allowing Raven to peer under his cape. He hadn't been clutching his side at all, but someone. They were clutching to his right side for dear life, a little girl. Raven blew out a breathy sigh. What did you do? More 0.0, 0.0. Naruto came home later that evening. He found Cinder in the lounge perched on a recliner, rocking a weary Winter to sleep. His baby girl was barely awake at all, really, but clinging on with the stubborn tenacity of a child. They looked so peaceful together, he almost couldn't bear to disturb her. Rather than approach and risk waking her, little Winter always got energetic when he came home. He waited until she dozed off entirely. Only then did he approach. Cinder twitched. I hear you. He didn't bother to conceal his footsteps, pausing only to ruffle her hair. Where's your mother? Mama's resting in the sitting room upstairs, came the answering hum. Winter was being fussy, so I gave her a break. He couldn't help but smile at that. You're a good sister, Cinder. Winter couldn't ask for better. She flushed but didn't deny him. No one will hurt her. Ever. I won't let them. Fierce, fiery, feisty child. To think, there had been a time when she had been so deathly afraid of Winter's birth, of being replaced. Those days were Long was going to be an overprotective sister. He just knew it. Not that there was anything wrong with that, of course. Winter would want for nothing. Naruto could understand Cinder's desire to protect Winter, to make sure she never lived the ugly childhood she did, never suffered as she had, never had to scrounge to survive as she was forced to. He understood it, really, he did. Downright empathized with it even. Being a proper big sister was all well and good, so long as she didn't take it too far. Hopefully she wouldn't. All right, you two. Willow descended the steps from the second floor, shooing them away. Off you go now. I need to have a word with your father. The children didn't need to be told twice. They all but scampered up the steps. Willow stared at him for a long moment, then shook her head. I swear if Cinder and Sienna adopt a pack of misfits in the future, I'm blaming you. He almost laughed at her words. That is strangely specific. I mean it. We're going to be overrun at this rate. Laughing, she took him by the hand and led him away from the commotion upstairs. Speaking of which, where is our resident kitten? Now it was his turn to smile. Probably out with Tyrion in the yard. She likes to train at night. A distant explosion echoed from said yard, peppered by the spray of gunfire. Of course she does. Willow guided him down to one of the longer couches by the hearth. The moment he sat, she snuggled up next to him. He laid an arm around her shoulder and she cuddled closer still, laying her head on his shoulder. It felt good. Right. Like he'd found his other half. A moment of blissful silence followed, broken only by the pitter-patter of feet and the occasional yelp from upstairs. His fiancée piped up without warning, pivoting to sit in his lap. Now that the children are busy, I was hoping we could talk. In that instant, he was keenly aware of the ring in his pocket. Was this it? Was this his moment? Naruto feigned indifference and closed his eyes with a shrug. Fine by me. Talk she did. Naruto was neither fine nor happy by the end of it. So much for shut-eye. You want the kids to attend an academy? Shh! Willow shushed him frantically, one hand over his mouth. Not so loud! He bit her fingers and she recoiled with a growl. Nice try, but you're not distracting me from this. Cinder and the others are getting older, dear. They're still too young to attend a proper school for now, but they need a place to burn off all that excess energy. And besides, wouldn't it be nice to have some time to ourselves? Winter will be taking up enough of our time as it is. She tried to walk today, you know. His heart twitched. He'd nearly missed her first steps. It was tempting, but he didn't like the idea of just sending them off against their will. It has to be their choice. I won't force them to do something they don't want to. You won't have to. She patted his cheek. I heard Cinder muttering something about team names before you came home. He very nearly smiled despite himself. She certainly doesn't lack for ambition or energy. No, she does not, Willow agreed wholeheartedly. She even said something about forming a team of her own. Team CRSN, I believe it was. Which implied she'd known Neo, the N in that little formation, was on her way. Sneaky, sneaky girl. I thought she didn't want to be a huntress. She doesn't. Willow reassured him. But she's not above a bit of training or forming her own unit. Tyrion's also been offered a teaching position at Atlas next year. He has. Professor Tyrion had a ludicrous ring to it. He'll probably turn it down. Not if you say otherwise. Willow, no. Think of his poor students. He'd probably try to convince Atlas to worship him. Half did already. Willow, yes. She gripped his hands in her own, diverting his attention once more. The man may be mad, but he's one of the best fighters this side of Remnant. Think of what he could impart to others, the skills he could teach. And besides, aren't you on better terms with James these days? He shrugged a shoulder. James can be a bit reckless, but I like that. He sees a threat and he goes after it. No plotting or scheming. From one knucklehead to another, eh? You like him. More than I do Ozpin. The old coot had been sniffing around Atlas of late, trying to sound him out for a favour of some sort. Whatever it was, he wasn't interested in that. He had a life here, no time to go herring off on missions or requests. The madness in Menagerie had been bad enough. The last thing he wanted was to run around playing peacekeeper for the other nations. Willow saw the look in his eyes and heaved a fresh sigh. You don't trust anyone you haven't fought these days. It's the best way to get the measure of someone. She laid a hand on his chest, fingers trailing over his jacket, eyes half-lidded. So you must know me very well. More than you think. She kissed him deeply and strengthened such thoughts. His hands tightened around her waist, gripping her rear. Now who's distracting whom? Willow began to unbutton her blouse. I'm not hearing a no in there. I'll think about it, all right? He groused a little as she exclaimed happily and delivered a swift peck to his cheek. Can we stop talking about the kids for a few minutes? Happily, Tilda. Isn't this nice? She laughed between kisses. Romance doesn't always have to be, well, romantic. She waved a hand, flailing for the words. You don't need sunsets or snow. It can really be something, you know? This was it. The mood was right. You're right. He steeled himself. I've been meaning to ask you something. She laughed and slapped his chest. Is this where you finally ask me to marry you properly? Damn it! His silence must have spoken for itself because her eyes widened. He'd surprised her. She'd not expected this. Not from him. They'd been engaged for so long now in principle, if not practice, and neither had felt the need to take that next step. He'd always thought it would be her. She'd certainly become bold enough. Willow's mind fizzled. Oh, gods. Both hands flew to her mouth. Is this where you marry me? Naruto blew out an aggravated sigh. Well, I'm not going to ask you now. You've spoiled the moment. I'll have to pick another. Her forehead smashed against his, eyes blazing blue maiden fire. Is it will you marry me? Willow, the moment. No, no, no. Wait. She all but leapt off his lap and surged to her feet, took several deep breaths, clutching at her chest, face flushed. Just wait, please. Start again. He nearly laughed despite himself. You can't just, again. I've waited years to hear you say this. She stomped a foot. Start again! When he didn't answer, her poor face turned positively pink. We just sat down, had a perfectly lovely moment, and you say, I've got a question to ask you. And I don't say anything. And you say, it wasn't the moment he'd hoped for, but it would do. Looking at her now, listening to her lively spirit, he remembered why he'd fallen for her in the first place. Right. Okay then. He could do this, couldn't he? He'd fought down demons and disasters. Surely a little proposal couldn't be so hard. Blast it all, just move! He forced himself to stand before he lost his nerve. Just as quickly, he dipped a hand into his pocket and got down on one knee. Willow made a noise caught somewhere between a happy sob and a squeal. Willow Schnee. He forced himself to swallow lest the words get stuck in his throat. You've made the happiest man alive, you know. Will you marry me? His words trailed off into a strangled laugh. She jumped him, all but welding her lips to his as she drove him to the floor. There was a high, wild light in her eyes as she leaned back. He thought she might mount him then and there, tear his clothes off and have her way with him all night. Yes, she purred between kisses. I'm yours. Always. Now and forever. Abruptly she paused. Gods be good. I nearly forgot. Naruto blinked hopelessly. Forgot what now? Come with me. She bolted upright, grabbed his hand and all but dragged him from the room, hauling him across the hall to another door. Hurry! She paused before it, took a moment to make herself presentable, then pushed the door open with her free hand and ushered him inside, dragged in after her. Naruto didn't realize Willow's intentions until it was too late. Hey! Summer Rose waited them within, sitting on the bed. Naruto stiffened. What? I asked her here. The Schnee nudged him forward before he could think to flee. I thought it high time we had a talk. Just the three of us. Naruto tilted his head. About... You know what? He had an inkling now, come to think of it, but that was... absurd, wasn't it? I swear if you have Raven and Callie hiding under that bed... Please. Willow hid a giggle behind one hand. It was difficult enough convincing Summer to even have this conversation. I haven't even begun to work on those two. Frankly, I'm not sure I want to. They're not my best friend. She is. She's after my arm, not me. A poignant pause followed as Summer flushed. Isn't she? Summer buried her face in her hands and spouted gibberish. Oh dear. I'm not asking you to marry her. His wife-to-be smiled impishly. That would be a little ridiculous, don't you think? Even for you. Summer groaned into her palms. Willow, why? One night, the Schnee matriarch held up a finger. That's all she wants. It doesn't even have to be tonight. She wants to get it out of her system, and maybe, just maybe, Naruto knew what she was implying. How could he not? Even he wasn't that dense. His face went red, and for a wild moment he imagined a tiny silver-eyed warrior grinning up at him with whiskered cheeks, the spitting image of him and Summer. A pure, innocent little life full of hope and bravery. He could even imagine a name for her. Ruby. He could feel his ears burning a deep, embarrassed pink. Summer might not be a maiden, but she was a dear friend, even if she drove him up the wall sometimes. But to give her a child, I can't believe I'm even considering this. Summer laid a hand on his. Their eyes met. Chapter 29. I bet you think you know what happened next, don't you, Neo? Well, you'd be wrong. I wasn't there, but people talk. Willow and Summer certainly did. It was just one night, they said at the time. What could go possibly wrong? Ever heard of the domino effect? In other words, partner, never. Tempt, fate. Tilda Torquick, future. Just one night, their eyes met. So, what happens now? That was the question, wasn't it? Naruto scratched the back of his head, momentarily at a loss. For perhaps the first time in his life, he genuinely did not know what to do. Summer's hesitation and Willow's smirk certainly didn't help any. He genuinely had no idea what to do with the young woman currently sitting in his lap. His face felt like it was on fire, and he didn't dare move his hands for fear of spooking the poor Rose. Willow smirked. Well, are you just going to sit there? Summer squeaked. I'm working on it. Willow's smile grew. Naruto felt heat rush to his cheeks. This was a gift he'd never even thought to consider, something he hadn't even known he might want until it was presented to him. Did he want this? Did he want her? Huntresses were fighting fit, and Summer was no exception. Her silver eyes shone in the low light, her pale cheeks dusted with the slightest hint of pink. Her eyes met his, darted down to his lips and lingered there. He felt his heart quicken and skip a beat. Summer? She pressed her lips together in a pout. I wasn't staring. You really were. He looked back to Willow in vain. You're sure about this? Quite. Her smile was nothing short of stunning. There's nothing wrong with this. I approve. You're my best friend, and I wouldn't even consider this otherwise. Summer squirmed like a naughty schoolgirl, hands in her lap, hips twisting side to side beneath his stare. Willow! Why? Because you've been dancing around this for far too long, and amusing as it is. She planted a palm against her back. I'm tired of watching you suffer like this. You're bad at flirting, Sum. Very bad. Summer made angry summer noises. Willow, no! Willow, yes! She shoved her. Now kiss him before I make you. They both knew it was no idle threat. He wouldn't put it past her to lock them in a closet until they sorted this out. She might even tie her down to the bed. Perhaps it was that which finally compelled Summer to act. Whatever the case, she didn't rush in as he expected him, which surprised him more than he wished to admit. Instead, she dipped her head, tucked a stray strand of hair behind one ear, and leaned in. Her lips touched his, soft as petals brush, and lingered for what felt like an eternity before she finally pulled away. Silver eyes met blue. How was that? I don't know. Honest. He didn't dislike it, but... She kissed him again, deeply this time, with passion. Willow made a pleased noise and took a seat, content to watch. Such a voyeur she was. For once, Summer ignored her friend. Her hands roamed his body, eager to touch, happy to linger, and he let himself enjoy them. His palms sought her hips, gracing the curves there. He could feel the muscle beneath her body, coiled like a spring, quivering. With what? Tension? Relief? Lust? Her emotions were a tangled mess, difficult even for him to sense. Off went her cloak, pooling on the bed beneath them. Her fingers fumbled for the buttons of his shirt, popping them 3 at a time in her haste to get at him, even as he helped her shrug out of her blouse. Her lips tasted of cherries and apricots and wait! She drew back with a little gasp, eyes glazed, one pale bosom exposed to the moonlight. Maybe this isn't fair to Raven and Kali. And Willow tilted her head. You're my best friend. They aren't. If they want a shot at my man, my betrothed, my fiancé, duh. He loved it when she used those words. Then they shall have to earn it. She finished, stamping a foot. You have. Simple as that. Don't make me tie you to the bed with my glyphs, Summer. Naruto tried to intervene the only way he knew how. Well, maybe Gyra will finally notice Kaylee. Willow arched an eyebrow, but he boldly barreled on. And Tai will settle down with Raven? Summer's brow climbed higher. You do realize who you're talking about, no? Now it was his turn to squirm, and he didn't like it one bit. I don't want to steal anybody out from under anyone. Willow tilted her head. Is it stealing if Gyra isn't aware of her feelings? He laughed ruefully. Touché, but even so, no more stalling. Willow snapped her fingers, producing an audible crack. It was his only warning. A storm of glyphs assailed them not a moment later, catching on their clothes and tearing them away with brutal dispatch, leaving them clad in their undergarments. Summer tried to protest, tried to cover herself to no avail. She knew no mercy. Naruto, having been in such a position before, took it in stride. What else could he do? This was hardly the first time his fiancé had torn his clothes off, even if it was for another woman's sake. He guided a fretful Summer back into his lap, and her embarrassed complaints soon became little gasps of mewling pleasure once more. From there, the night descended into a carnal haze. He barely remembered most of it. She pushed him down, climbed atop him, and kissed him with gusto. And that, as they say, was that. At some point, Willow must have joined in, because when he finally came to, he found himself tangled up in a terribly compromising position with no desire to move. Oh, gods, Summer gasped, head sprawled against his chest, breath coming in little gasps. That felt good. Willow was all smiles as ever. You certainly enjoyed yourself, the White Rose groaned. And you do this every night? Not every night, no, Willow hummed, but whenever we get the chance. I'm not sure whether to be proud or appalled of you two. Maybe both. How does Winter not have a baby sister yet? Willow's smile held a hint of whimsy to it. You may say that now, but you didn't hesitate to jump on him. Summer made startled summer noises and flailed her hands. We are not having this discussion, aren't we? Willow smiled coyly, all teeth. I seem to recall you having a rather loud orga. Summer bolted to her feet and fled. Willow's laughter chased her from the room. Said retreat became a full-fledged rout. 0.0, 0.0. Report. A single word was all Salem needed. She savoured simplicity. No need for complex commands here. Her minions were quick to answer. Of course they were. She'd selected them for their loyalty, if nothing else. A shame about Arthur Watts and Tyrion Callows, though. There was a time when she'd thought to recruit them into her ranks. They would have been valuable allies, but it was abundantly clear now that their loyalty lay with the Schnee, and the Schnee alone. Tyrion thought Naruto a god. How little he knew. And Watts had found the validation he'd always craved. There would be no shaking either of them. The more she dwelt on it, the more a pity she thought it was. Such a pity indeed. She could have done such wonderful things with them at her side. No matter. There were others. There were always others. That Polendina fellow and his penny project had potential. Perhaps with the right nudge. There was still malcontent in Menagerie as well. With the proper application of pressure and promises. They fortified their position remarkably quickly. Her chief doctor declared, bringing her back to reality. Atlas is nigh on impregnable now. To attack the kingdom from the outside, even with all our grim, would be beyond foolish. And, my queen, an empire toppled by its enemies can rise again. A finger tapped the table, further emphasizing his point. But one which crumbles from within? That's dead, forever. Dark red eyes considered him for a long moment. What do you propose, Malo? That we destroy the Schnee from within? Hazel rumbled his agreement, terse as ever. He'd never quite recovered from his defeat at the hands of Willow and Naruto. Good. It would make him all the more hungry for victory. She might have to deal with the former herself at this rate. The blonde was becoming something of a nuisance. Really, he reminded her of a younger Ozma. So bold, so brash, so brave. If she didn't know better, she would have sworn she looked to the remaining seats and the silent figures within. And what say you two? Soon enough, the rest of the table descended into vigorous plots and schemes. The game was, as the kids said nowadays, finally afoot. Let Ozma play his little shadow games for now. He knew not what awaited him. 0.0, 0.0. And where have you been? Nowhere. Right. Raven looked her teammate up and down, frowning a little as the portal swished shut behind her. She noted 3 things at once: Summer's rosy cheeks, her decidedly wrinkled clothes, the way she favoured her right leg. Any one of these things she could have ignored on a given day. But together, well, they painted a rather different picture. A lazy smile bloomed across her pale face. Oh ho? No way. You finally got some? Summer squeaked. Who's the lucky guy? She slung an arm around her shoulder. Who deflowered our precious rose? It was just too much fun watching her squeak and squirm. Come on, spill the beans. Summer bit her lip and refused to look at her. Is it Ty? Crow looked over from his bunk. Tell me it's Ty. Bastard's been mooning about someone for months now. Is it HM? Is it who, now? Their dorm door swung open, admitting the man himself grinning from ear to ear. I just came back from a date with Glinda. What did I miss? Crow blinked. Wait, you were out with Good Witch? When did that happen? A while ago. Their resident blonde brawler tilted his head. I don't see why my dating life is any of your concern. You're taking a bullhead to visit Saturn almost every other week. Hey! Not cool, man. Don't diss the bunny. Summer still hadn't said a word. Raven absolutely choked. Summer's silence was a death knell to her optimism. She looked left, she looked right, but there wasn't so much as a scrap of hope in sight. Crow realized it first and fell out his bunk with a cackle. No way. No freaking way. You did not get to Whiskers before she did. Raven absolutely froze. It didn't take her long to put 2 and 2 together. The resultant shout was heard all across Beacon. Summer! 0.0, 0.0. Summer! Ozpin looked up from his paperwork. My, he tutted softly. Flirting was far less destructive in my day. Still, he had every reason to encourage this. Their off-peace ring would be powerful if nothing else. The future was looking bright indeed. As far as he concerned, the more children Naruto had, the merrier and the safer remnant would be. 0.0, 0.0. Archutilda. Kaylee sneezed loudly. Huh, someone must be talking about her. How quaint. Gyra, she sighed. Be a dear and help me with this banner, would you? No response. Her lips pursed in a frown. I know you don't like ladders, but I really do need some help with this. Still no answer. She looked over her shoulder, still struggling with the cloth. Gira, she tutted, seeing he was nowhere to be found. Honestly, where did that silly boy get off to? Doesn't he know we have a rally in an hour? Could somebody help me with this? A distant noise caught her right ear and caused it to twitch. Every faunus had exceptional hearing and eyesight. It was simply a fact of life. Kali was no exception. Her first inclination was to dismiss it. Menagerie was not a quiet place, even after that disaster with the dragon and the volcano, but this nagged at her all the same. Setting the banner down, she hopped off the ladder, handed the cloth off to another volunteer, made her excuses and slipped away into the night. She followed it and slipped into an alley near the harbour. It almost sounded like someone was grunting, struggling with something heavy. Honestly, was he off moving those crates by himself again? She sighed. I told Gira to wait for Tuxen and Bane. Kaylee crept in on the very tips of her toes and peeked around the corner. Her eyes widened. Gira wasn't moving any crates or doing any such heavy lifting. No, he was too busy holding a red-headed faunus woman she vaguely recognized, someone who looked too colourful to be anything but a huntress. Someone who had just shucked their hair aside, baring their bosom to Gira as they pushed him up against a wall. He made no attempt to resist her advances, even less so when she stepped to him and smashed her lips to his. He kissed her back just as fiercely, his hands running over the horns in her hair, while her palms fumbled at his trousers and... Oh, no. Realization broke like the dawn and horror raced in hot on its heels. No, not like this. Kaylee stepped back, slumped soundlessly against the wall. They didn't hear her, of course. How could they? They were too caught up in one another. Enjoy their reunion. And all she could was watch, horrified. Her heart shattered into 1,000 pieces, cutting her every thought to ribbons. In hindsight, she wasn't sure when she returned home. She had no real memory of leaving that alley. She vaguely remembered walking for an indiscriminate amount of time, climbing the steps to her bedroom and opening her door. She stumbled to her bed, tripped, then gave up and flung herself down on the mattress. It was here that her ironclad self-control finally broke. Kaylee buried her head in her pillow and wept. She cried herself to sleep. Chapter 30. You must be ready for the trials ahead. Are you prepared? Show me. Tilda. The smiling Schneestab. Parry. Riposte. Cinder drilled hard with her twin blades, cutting a path of baleful black and wicked white before her in the air. Faced with such an assault, her opponent took the only option available to them. They gave ground rather than face her fury head-on, weaving between her blows with roguelike grace, grinning all the while. What few attacks she actually managed to land glanced harmlessly off her adversary's aura, coming within inches of cleaving their head from their shoulders time and again, yet still that indefatigable grin never wavered. Not once. That all you got? She grit her teeth, stamped down on her temper before it could get the better of her, and redoubled her efforts. Calm? She must be calm. She'd asked for this, hadn't she? To fight at a disadvantage, go back to basics, to better fine-tune her maiden powers alongside her semblance, and finally, force the damn thing to evolve. It was her fault she'd bit off more than she could chew. This must not register on an emotional level. No, it wouldn't, because she refused to let it. So she did what she did best. She got aggressive, she pressed the attack, she advanced. There was no cover here in the courtyard. If her enemy retreated too far, he'd run right up against the manor, and unlike Naruto father, he didn't have the liberty of running up walls. He must have realized it too, because he planted his feet and snapped forward. The sudden burst of offense startled her, causing her charge to falter for a moment. And then Roman parried her. Melodic Cudgel flicked out quick smart, smacked Kansho aside, dragged Bakuya out of the way, and drove a fist up into her solar plexus. The pain was incredible. Her aura flexed, and she physically felt her ribs creak for an awful moment before she managed to retaliate. Her temper sparked as she whirled, snapping a kick into her foe sibling's ribs to send him flying across the garden. He rode the momentum with a cackle. Let it buy him some distance now, as he raised his right arm. Up came his cane, and Cinder heard an ominous click. A searing volley of multiple dust rounds filled her vision. Dodge! Years of hardened instincts ingrained into her very soul by Naruto had her dropping flat to the dirt. And well that she did, because the explosion that followed warmed the back of her neck even through her hair. Against her better judgment, she waved a hand through the smoke to see his handiwork. Only a stone's throw away, an unlucky tree smouldered to cinders beneath the blaze. Cinder winced at the sight, knowing full well that could have been her if she wasn't careful. Schnee dust was prime, potent, powerful stuff. Papa made sure his children were never lacking for it. Still, that much was overkill. Well, 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 Tild. Roman planted both hands on his cane, jabbed it in the dirt, and stuck out his tongue. Nothing to say, Cindy. Maybe you're not so tough without those maiden powers. An indignant sputter of rage sparked to life in her chest. No, calm. He was trying to rile her up. She righted herself with a growl, forcing herself up onto her hands and knees. Wait, where was Sienna? Something lashed out of the smoke from behind her, curled around her ankle and yanked, launching her into the air. She righted herself with a gust of wind and fire, but it was too late. Another rising whine informed her of a second volley, and this time, she didn't have the liberty to dodge. Frantic, she shed dust from the sleeves of her dress, flung up her hands, and conjured a wall of viscous volcanic glass between her and impending doom. Just in time, too. The subsequent blast slapped Cinder out of the air like the hand of an angry god, sending her tumbling to the ground, with most of her aura intact. Victory was hers. Oh, come on! An indignant shout greeted her from within the smoky haze. That semblance of yours is bullshit! We had you. She preened, flicking a strand of dark hair over her shoulder. Don't hate the player, hate the game. Payback time. Alighting in a pointed crouch, she pressed a hand to the dirt and kicked backward in a flare of fire, dragged her palm across the manor gardens to create a towering wave of glass in her wake. Doing so drained her present aura reserves more than she cared to admit, but still, despite the pain, despite the ringing in her ears, despite the hammering of her heart, a wry smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. For all their squabbling, Roman and Sienna had displayed more than adequate teamwork, just no, and she only had herself to blame. She'd been so focused on Roman that she'd forgotten all about the faunus lurking in the background. Her sister-in-arms had never been the sort to let such things slide, but two could play that game. With a smirk, she stomped a foot and sent all the glass she'd conjured snarling forward into the smokescreen. A series of startled shouts were her reward. She knew they'd be diving and ducking for cover right about now, which gave her all the time in the world to locate them. Stowing her blades behind her back, she closed her eyes, pressed her palms together and listened just as she'd been taught. In a moment, she was swept up in a memory. Good. Father's voice came to her unbidden, praising her from the past. Very good. You may not have chakra like Winter, but you have even more potential. Between your maiden powers, that semblance of use, and a bit of training, anything's possible. You just have to realize it. Here, it helps if you have a chant to focus on. Find something that works for you. Taking a deep breath, she knelt and pressed one palm to the dirt, superheating it with her touch. The maiden power within her stirred, mingling with her semblance. Then she began to speak. I am the bone of my sword. All around the manor, the world suddenly shifted as reality itself shuddered in vile anticipation. Spires of glass burst from the ground at her command, great gleaming geysers of death ready and willing to skewer anyone in her way. She directed them with her will, urging them to seek and hunt her forays, forced them to take the shapes she desired. Not just a piece, but so much more. Glass is my body and fire is my blood. Roman and Sienna yelped in the haze, unprepared for her penultimate technique. I have created... She choked on her own spit, unable to finish the chant as her aura began to fizzle. Too much. It was still too much for her. Sweat beaded down her brow and she righted herself, swaying on her feet to regard the vast plain of hardened, jagged glass before her. It was crude, ugly, incomplete. She hadn't mastered it yet, and wouldn't for years to come. But what she'd created remained for a fleeting moment. Long enough to give her the edge, to allow her to both imprison and sense all that stood upon her domain. Her eyes snapped open. There! She burst into the fading smoke and swept it aside with a rush of primal flame. Sure enough, she found Sienna trapped between the glass spikes, standing terribly still, either unable or unwilling to move for fear of cutting her aura to ribbons. Cinder showed no such mercy. Her found Sienna's throat and slammed her down, stunning her. Glass shattered at her back, digging into her aura, until with a yelp she flung up her hands. Give! She cried. I give up! Oh, come on. Roman swore not a stone's throw away, voice peaking with outrage. That is so not fair! You dirty cheater! I'm telling Dad. Cinder rounded on him, eyes flashed with fire. All right. Her comrade flailed back, arms raised. I surrender. Don't bust out the big guns. You know I can't handle that. Cinder took a deep breath and reluctantly let it go. The last of her realm faded away, leaving only pockmarked dirt in its place. She took a moment to marvel at, preening a little. Sure, she was only a child, but what kind of child could command such power? Not many. Life was good. She had her fair share of friends, even if she called most of them minions. She had wealth, fame, power, everything a girl could ever want. Because, you see, she had a family. Not just in Roman and Sienna, but in father and mother, and even little Winter as well. She shuddered to think what she would have become had she remained at the Glass Unicorn. But the past was her past, and she preferred to keep it there. The future was now. Now she offered a hand to Sienna. You fought well. Roman grumbled as he rose. Must be nice having semblances. You'll unlock yours soon enough, Roman. Will I? She didn't miss the bitter tinge to his tone. It's been more than a year. Sienna pinched his cheek. Don't sulk. You'll get creases. Piss off. He batted her hand down. You don't know what it's like. Cinder frowned, tilted her head now, blinked for good measure. Was he jealous? She couldn't blame him. Papa was Papa. Mama was a maiden, and so was she. Sienna was an ambush attacker through and through, while little Winter was already showing signs of the Schnee semblance. It must hurt, being the odd duck out. She wasn't used to comforting people. Still, she felt the need to try. I'm sure it'll be something grand, Roman. Torchwick tutted and kicked his cane up into his hand. This from the girl who was the literal power of seasons in her hands. She shrugged. Well, not so grand as me, but still. I want it to be something useful. He grit his teeth and looked away, seething. Powerful. He all but growled the word, glancing Sienna's way. Yours helps you because you're becoming a literal ninja. And don't get me started on you, you damn fire fairy. Quick as a flash, Cinder found herself the subject of his ire. Your semblance was bloody broken before you got the superpowers. Now you're off creating whatever the hell that was just now. What do I have? You dodge good? His face flushed. I don't want to be a damn dodge tank. A startled shout came from the manor, shattering the moment. Kids, come quick. Winter is walking. Cinder never moved so fast in all her life. She did not walk. She didn't run. No. She absolutely blurred. Flames flashed from her feet as she flung herself forward, scorching the grass black. Behind her, Roman and Sienna abandoned their argument and raced after her. Good. They knew what was important. Life was good. No, scratch that. Things were better than good. They were great. Whatever troubles might come, she would face them, head on. She had every reason to smile. Chapter 31. When in doubt. Tilda. Throw money at the problem. Winter was walking. Well, walking, running and jumping, really, which was rather surprising given how small she was. Still, there could be no prouder moment in a parent's life than watching an offspring take her first steps. Even now, she toddled about the living room without a care in the world, under the watchful eye of Willow and the rest. As for him, he was in charge of recording it all, also making sure certain psychotic scorpion faunas played nice, but they didn't talk about that. Winter cried out and he winced. Tyrion, be careful. Drop her and I drop you. I promise not to sting her, Tilda. Naruto rolled his eyes but kept his camera upright and likewise kept filming, content to let a giggling Winter dangle off Tyrion's tail, so long as the man kept his stinger sheathed in a padded pillow. Naturally, being a grabby girl, she just had to make a move for that too, precisely why they'd tied the darn thing tight around the faunus prehensile appendage to begin with. It was almost cute, in a deadly murderous sort of way. Tyrion was, of course, delighted by any attention from his niece and proved surprisingly gentle with her despite his eccentricities. Even now, as he swung her up and down, delighting in her cries for more, he kept one hand out, ready to catch the energetic child should she slip. Ha! Uncle Tyrion. Poor fellow started blubbering every time he heard it. Made him proper proud it did. He'd come a long way from that madman in Menagerie. Sure, he might be crazy. Sure, he was prone to stabbing their enemies. And sure, he still believed that he and Kurama were gods, but he was their madman. There was a difference. Thank you very much. Really, he was rather like Watts in a sense. Both could be eccentric, foppish, even a touch arrogant at times, but better to put their gifts to use here in Atlas than turn them loose in the world. He shuddered to think what might happen had Salem found them first. Nope, not having that. Twian! Winter burbled up happily, drawing him back to the present just in time to see her little legs flailing in the air as soared upright. Hee-ha! As you command. Tyrion made pleased Tyrion noises and hoisted her high again. Such a delightful niece. Upsy Tilda Daisy Tilda. Winter's laughter peaked into a merry squeal. Hey! Roman clicked his tongue at him. Don't throw her that high, you lout. Sienna yawned and waved a clawed hand. Meh, she'll be fine. She's got her aura unlocked. Cinder sulked from where she lounged against the recliner, but otherwise refused to give her opinion. Don't pout, he chided softly and tousled her hair instead. You're too big to be thrown around like that by him. She wouldn't speak to him, but her gaze strayed his way. Such a dishonest child. Tyrion saw it, of course. Oh, do you want Uncle Tyrion to play with you too? Cinder scowled. No, only Papa and Mama can throw me. Willow hid a lovely smile behind one hand. My. Huck! Naruto's reaction proved more visceral. He swayed a little on his feet and clutched at his chest. Even after all those years, she still got him with that sometimes. Dad, Daddy, Father, Papa, and the like. He never knew which word she'd use on a given day, though she seemed to have gravitated toward the latter as of late. I could throw you, he allowed, tousling Cinder's hair, but I thought you were above such things. Her gaze sought his. I might not be. Right, that did it. Handing the camera off to a shadow clone, he fixed his lieutenant with a stern glare. I'll be right back. Guard her with your life, you hear me? The faunus saluted. As my lord and saviour commands. None of that. Willow tutted and held out her arms, gaining their daughter's attention. Winter, dear, come see Mommy. The 2-year-old toddled her way with haste. Naruto let her, content to watch for now. He wasn't blind to Cinder's burning gaze on his back. Someone was jealous. He rolled his eyes, sat down on a nearby sofa and patted his knee. Come here, Cinder. There was no hesitation. His fearless foster daughter didn't so much move as she did pounce, hopping up into his lap without so much as a second thought. She landed with such force that he rocked back for a moment and had to steady himself. From there, he absently braced her back with one hand and patted her head with the other. She made a pleased noise and preened a little, cuddling close. All that trust humbled him sometimes. It really did. She'd come a long way from that feisty, fiery, frightened urchin who'd snatched his meal down in Mantle. Roman hooted. Ha! Daddy's girl! Cinder snarled and snapped her fingers, conjuring a fireball. It flew forth to clip his shoulder, sparked off his aura, and summarily sent him flying across the room, knocking him into Sienna. The pair went down with a yelp, but it was the former who howled angry imprecations at them both. Oh, you bitch! I liked that coat. Don't look at me, you arse! You're the one that pissed her off. Language, both of you. Naruto looked back to Cinder, grasped for something to say, found it, and latched on tight. How's your semblance training come along? Her golden gaze gleamed, heady with triumph. Quite nicely. I can almost use that now. She'd nearly mastered it already. Seems I need to step up your training. Cinder's gaze lit up, quite literally. He could see the maiden flames fanning in her eyes, trailing out in wisps of heat. I like training. Will it make me more powerful? Unbelievably. But if you don't want that... No! She gripped his metal arm with both hands, eyes ablaze. I want that. I want all of that. Kurama cackled in his head. Of course you do. Can we start now? I have some errands to run with Watts and Pietro first, but you're more than welcome to come with... Hey! He heard Willow's scroll clicked behind him and scowled, realizing the photos she'd just snapped of them. Crow was never going to let him live this down. I don't suppose you'd be willing to delete that one? That depends. She scooped little Winter up, sat beside them, and handed the girl off to Cinder. What would you give me? He leaned in, whispering into her ear to make her belissa. Well, I suppose I could... Cinder made gagging noises. Oh, not here, please. Winter took full advantage and began to gum on her hair while she was distracted, of course. Not the hair, she tutted softly. Naughty girl. That's not food for you, Winter whimpered. Oh, Finn! But just this once. She promptly began eating her hair again, the silly girl. Roman and Sienna snickered at the sight, the absolute traitors. This time, Cinder couldn't do anything but scowl at them, not with her hands full. But he could. Tyrion, he smiled. Why don't you take the dynamic duo over there out back for a bit of training? His lieutenant perked up. Can we use the danger room? Sure, he nodded. Watts just put the finishing touches on it yesterday. Go nuts. Tyrion perked up. Roman blanched, but Sienna practically drooled. Sweet! Dibs on the paladins. Roman swore. Oi now! Can it, you bloody masochist? If you think for a single solitary second that I'm going to fight a bunch of bots, too little, too late. Tyrion snatched them both up with a sinister smile and dove for the doors. Ah, sweet training. What fun, what fun. Come, my students. Glory awaits. Willow kissed his cheek. I suppose that's your cue then, dear. Have a nice day. Say goodbye to your papa, Winter. He'll be back tonight. Their daughter released Cinder and flung up her arms with an exuberant cry. Da! He smiled, leaning down to kiss her cheek. That's my girl. Life was good. Duh, 0.0. Summer doubled over and heaved into the toilet. Why me? I hate getting sick like this. It was just the flu, right? Had to be, right? 0.0. Your arm is coming along nicely. Is it? Naruto flexed his metallic arm, tugging at the wires embedded within. Doesn't feel like it. Quite so. Watts bustled past him, snatched a wrench from his workbench, and whirled to face him. I've made several upgrades and quality-of-life improvements, improved the alloy, and made it lighter, to say nothing of the new features. A blonde brow rose, curiosity piqued. Such as... Arthur listed them long, loud, and at length. By the end, he was grinning. You gave me a rocket launcher. With limited ammunition, mind you. A finger jabbed his chest. Don't go blowing up any buildings. His head tilted. But it still runs on dust, right? It does, he hedged reluctantly. Then they had no problems. Best scientist ever, Tilda. Arthur's mustache practically prickled with pride. I'm well aware. Poor Cinder looked bored out her mind. Thankfully, Alma was quick to take her aside and start asking questions about swords, which freed the two of them up to discuss other matters. He wasn't quite sure why Arthur's daughter was fixated on the art of the blade, and frankly, he didn't want to know. Ignorance was bliss. And what of our latest project? On schedule. Watts freed the wires from his arm and helped him out the chair. The contributions you've made this last year alone have significantly improved my work. Good. Hey, it was. Really, it was about knowing what folks wanted and giving it to them, and he was nothing if not a people person. Speaking of which, how's little Alma doing? Arthur Watts was not a man to gush often, but his daughter was the exception. Quite well. Why not ask her? Naruto craned his neck back, blinked, only to find no one there. Cinder had hunkered down into a corner to meditate again, but of Alma he saw no sign. How unlike her. Ordinarily he would have thought she was trying to hide from him again, but he couldn't even sense her. Which meant, he frowned, she's right behind me, isn't she? Above, actually. Uncle Tilt! Alma landed on his shoulders with a giggle and vaulted into his lap with frightful ease. He sputtered for a second, catching her. How'd you pull that off? A semblance. Watts preened. Nothing so droll. Show him, dear. Yes, father. She vanished before his eyes. If it weren't for her weight in his lap, he wouldn't have known she was there at all. More than that, he couldn't even sense her presence. It was as if she had simply ceased to exist. When she laughed, a shiver shot down his spine. Scary little thing. She was going to be downright dangerous when she was older. How's she doing this, Watts? A facet of chakra, his scientist hummed. Remarkable, isn't she? That was one word for it? Alma, darling, why don't you go ambush Cinder? She looks far too peaceful over there. He couldn't see her, but he heard her laughter and rapidly retreating footsteps all the same. It gave them excuse to send her away and speak candidly, if nothing else. Even then, he waited until she was out of earshot. Well done. Have you shared these results with Pietro? His smile died an ugly death, as a still invisible Alma scampered off to spook Cinder. Must I? My work is miles better than anything that fat fool can produce. Now. Watts and Pietro would never truly be friends, but they could at least work together and foster a healthy competition between them. Mostly. Penny and Alma saw to that. They were sisters in bond, if not blood. And this ability of hers was versatile. If they could expand it, perhaps give it to others, they could have entire towns masked from the grim. Arthur coughed, ruining his daydream. You're up to something, aren't you? I can see the gears turning in your head. Well spotted. Watts was his chief scientist for a reason, after all. Maybe he shouldn't mention this to him yet. Salem's been strangely silent lately, he deflected instead. Watts made an annoyed noise. She has. Any word on that front? None. In this, at least, his shoulders slumped and conceded defeat. My drones haven't been able to penetrate that far into the Gremlins, even powered by my chakra. Fuel isn't the problem. Watts flung himself down into a chair opposite him, reached to the counter and cracked open a bottle of brandy. Her Grim are. He took a long drink from it before continuing. Anything I send in there gets bogged down and destroyed immediately. Her defenses have never been higher. And those are merely unmanned drones. If we sent soldier in there, huntsman or no, they'd be slaughtered. He heaved a sigh. I don't like this. She's up to something. We need a man on the inside. An unopened bottle bounced off his head. Don't even think about it. I'm not. He flung up a hand to catch it. Calm down. Good. Watts deflated with a sigh and let him drink. Willow would never forgive you trying such a stupid stunt. That said, we only know one of her agents. A smile split his face. We do, don't we? Watts clapped a hand to his forehead. If you mean to convert Hazel, I'll ask you not to. Why ever not? In case you've forgotten, your soon-to-be wife nearly killed him the last time you met. Besides, another drink came and went. The man only cares for revenge against Ozpin, because he let his sister die. Crow had mentioned it in passing. Do we have any proof that's the cause? Watts granted him a strange look. You actually want to turn him? Secrecy is still our best weapon for now, at least until we know more about our enemy. He looked back to the bottle in his hand and swirled it around, seeking to distract himself. I can slaughter Grim by the thousands, but the second I try to blitz the Grimlands, she's going to unleash hell on Atlas. Not Vale? No, he shook his head. The moment she realizes what I'm truly capable of, she'll throw everything she has here. His fingers tightened around the bottle, causing the glass to creak but not crack. I don't fear for myself, as you well know. I fear for my friends and family. When Watts didn't immediately answer, he couldn't quite keep the chuckle from his voice. I still count you among those, you know. That got a sputter out of him, and he took just a little pleasure in twisting the proverbial knife. Winters started walking. You really ought to visit more often, you want her to remember. Watts, much like Cinder, couldn't be honest with himself. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer, is that it? I have not, nor will I ever consider you my enemy, he temporized with a smile. I value you and your input too much for that. He folded like a house of cards. I can do some digging into Hazel's past. It won't be easy, mind you. And, if what you say is true, I'll likely need a link to Ozpin's personal terminal. Easily done. He just needed to bribe one of the Branwyn twins, or find an excuse to visit Vale, which meant interacting with Ozpin. Lovely. Shunting those unpleasant thoughts aside, Naruto stood and clapped him on the shoulder. I appreciate this. You're the best, Watts. Yes, yes, said Scientist, waved him away with a sputter. So you like to say. Once that's done, it begs the question, how best to lure Hazel out into the open? A smile split Naruto's face. I may have a few ideas. No, no, no. Watts saw it and rounded on it. Don't say that and give me that silent smile routine. That one may be a brute, but he isn't stupid. I ask again, how do you intend to pull off this charade of yours? With the best bait, of course. Nay, I see. There it was. A crumb, a clue, a conundrum for him to unravel, and unravel it he did. He won't come round for just anyone, and wherever we spring this trap, it would have to be far from Atlas. You would need a maiden, a silver-eyed warrior, or Ozpin himself, and since I very much doubt you're willing to risk Willow or Cinder— Oh. He paused, realizing what he intended. That's clever. Mad, but clever. It's just crazy enough to work. Naruto raised his right arm and flexed all 5 fingers in a lazy salute. What can I say? I learned from the best. Watts preened. I suppose you did, didn't you? And speaking of the best, how fares Miss Rose these days? Well, that question came out of nowhere. Summer's fine, he squinted his way, baffled. Why? No reason, Watts all but drawled the second word. Scientific curiosity, nothing more. His brow furrowed anew. You're up to something. Me? Perish the thought. Watts. Bah! Take the fun out back and beat it to death, why don't you? Arthur heaved a hearty sigh and went back to his bench where he promptly began fiddling with his gadgets. If you must know, I've been contemplating what a child of an accomplished silver-eyed warrior and a shinobi such as yourself might be like. After all, Watts rambled on, seemingly focused on his work once more. Alma professed an interest in having another playmate. But you don't have to worry about that now, do you? His neck craned back and a bushy black brow wriggled his way. You and Willow are the very soul of discretion. I'm sure any rumours I might have heard are just, unless, double irk, and double damn him for guessing correctly. Heat all but flooded his face. Not another word. Watts walked away with a spring in his step, the mad bastard. As you wish. Do give Penny my regards. 0.0, 0.0. Sal tilde you tilde tachons tilde. Naruto raised his arms and surrendered with a sigh. He knew there was nowhere to run. Sure enough, Penny crashed into him like a falling star, forcing him to dig his boots in and catch her under the arms lest he be bowled over outright. Thankfully, he had plenty of practice in dealing with excitable children by now. Rather than stagger, he spun her right round to bleed off momentum and set her down. Or rather, he tried, because his niece wasn't in any hurry to let go and clung tight onto his legs for dear life instead. I missed you, she giggled as she buried her head into his stomach and shook it to and fro. It's been forever since you visited. Penny, I was here just last month. Still too long. Cinder huffed at his side and made an annoyed noise under her breath. Unfair. Oh, Daddy's little girl didn't like sharing attention. Still, mistakes were made, if only because her idle remark funneled Penny's attention and excitement down onto her with all the force and excitement of a hurricane. Cousin Tilda! Cinder balked and tried to retreat, but it was too little, too late. Penny latched onto her like a limpet and squeezed her tight, incidentally pinning the older girl's arms at her sides as she hoisted her into the air and swung her to and fro. Naruto held out his scroll and snapped a quick photo for posterity's sake. Cinder scowled at him for it, but she had no one to blame but herself. There was no fear of her busting out the maiden powers here, not for something like this, but her embarrassment was almost palpable. She set a dark glower on Penny all the same. Let me go! Why would I do that? Hugs are nice. Now, Penny. Pietro's chair plodded around the corner carrying the man himself. Don't break the poor girl. I'm sure she's perfectly happy to see you too. Cinder made angry cinder noises until Penny released her. Shall we play? His daughter fixed her dress with a sullen scowl. Did you mean a spa? Innocent green eyes fluttered in quick blink. That is what I said, yes. Cinder looked to him for confirmation, golden eyes gleaming. May I? What was the harm? He gave her permission with a nod and she looked back with a smug smile. As you wish. Together they watched the girls scamper toward one of the testing rings, only looking back Pietro's way once he was certain they weren't up to no good. He didn't like what he found there. Penny's father had a weary air about him today, one that hadn't been since the least visit. More than that, they were deep, dark bags beneath his eyes, and his face looked to be in dire need of a shave. He looked, dare he say, haggard? Not quite gaunt, never him, but he'd clearly lost some weight, and in an unhealthy way. Everything all right there? He pivoted to lean against a nearby table. Penny's father flinched. Yes, of course. Pietro. No. He relented with a sigh, shoulders slumping. Not at all. James has cut my funding. The news didn't quite come as a slap in the face, but was close, enough to make him blink first. Why? Why do you think? Pietro flung up an arm and belatedly he glimpsed a line of scars there. Watts and his wonders. A faint bitter note crept into his voice. He doesn't think the Penny project is necessary anymore, from what he's seen. Alma has outpaced Penny. They're talking of shutting us down. Oh dear. Atlas needed Pietro in the Penny project. They couldn't afford to lose him to another kingdom, or, Log forbid, Ozpin himself. He could only imagine what the old man would do with a mind like Polendinus on his side, or worse, if Salem got her claws into such a desperate scientist. They needed to keep him at all costs. By that very logic, the solution seemed simple. How much lean you have left? Not enough. Pietro reached for an old gizmo, some strange blend of gears and springs he couldn't comprehend, and began to fiddle with it restlessly, fingers twitching, unable to meet his gaze. Not nearly enough. I've been keeping the project going on my own savings, but those are nearly gone. He knew what was coming next and wasn't disappointed when Penny's father cast a pleading gaze upon him. Please, she can change the world for the better, just like Alma. If he'd only give her a chance. He recognized the implicit plea for what it was and dithered for a moment, considering the ramifications. Ironwood wouldn't like him propping up the Penny project any more than he would having Pietro snatched out from under him. But at the end of the day, Lien opened doors. And he had money to spare. He was sure to get a scroll call for this little bout of altruism. Then so be it. How does 5 million sound? Pietro nearly fell out his chair. 5? Was that not enough? I could give you 10 to play with if you like. By the gods! Penny's father wheezed and clutched at his chest. He was fairly certain he'd nearly given the man stroke. Oh, thank you. You don't know what this means to me. He shrugged a shoulder. It's been a good year for the SDC. And for him. His own research was paying dividends as of late. But I expect results, Pietro. You have to make Penny the best she can be. The man seized his hand and shook it. I will. An unspoken question lingered in the air. He knew what it was. If I might be so bold as to ask, have you reconsidered letting me work with Chakra? Naruto's smile died an ugly death. Sorry, but that's out of the question. Watts is the only one I trust with that right now. And even then, he only gave it to him in measured doses. My answer is no. He's an egomaniac. Maybe, but he's my egomaniac. Pietro slumped in his chair with a sigh. You favor him. He took the accusation with good grace. I owe him. He held up his metal arm for emphasis and wiggled his fingers. If not for him, I wouldn't be where I am now. Penny's father knew a losing fight when he heard one, or maybe he just knew better than to pick a fight he couldn't win. I'll let it be then. You have my thanks for the funding. When will it come through? His scroll chimed. Naruto lowered his own, having opened it while he was speaking. Just now. Polendia opened his scroll and made a garbled noise as he beheld the contents within. How did you... He clasped the man's shoulder. I've got my fingers in plenty of pies, Pietro. Remember that. I reward loyalty and hard work. Don't let me down. It wasn't a threat, but a warning. And by the look in his eyes, he took it to heart. I wouldn't dream of it. Good man. Pietro bustled over to a workbench, already muttering scientific jargon that sailed over his head. Hard worker, that one. Atlas couldn't afford to lose him. Naruto let him go and amused himself for a while by arranging different chakra elements in his hand one after the other. Water, earth, fire, and wind. He'd be teaching Winter these someday and maybe more, if she had a bloodline. A yelp drew his attention and his gaze strayed back to the brawl just in time to see it take a turn. Cinder might be young, but she often acted older, ever trying to emulate Willow, ever the little lady, which was why it amused him so to hear her swearing like a sailor. His daughter chambered a kick, pivoted when Penny blinked, and drove a fist forward, stomping down to add momentum. Penny wasn't quick enough to stop her this time and doubled over with a startled gasp as her fist found her torso. Fire flashed forth, to which he clicked his tongue when he saw the furious flames flickering at the edge of her eyes. Cinder hadn't pulled out her maiden powers quite yet, but he could clearly see she was all of a hair's breadth from doing so. Penny had pushed her hard. It was a testament to her own training that she'd held out this long fighting as she was. She did him proud, but he could see she was losing this fight, a fight she'd willingly handicapped herself in. But she wouldn't use the maiden power here, not with the promise she'd made him. He was curious to see if she'd break her word or pull her blades. True enough, her Kanshu and Bakuya flashed out at long last, pride giving way to anger. She surged in, filled with anger. Penny knew no such emotion. She danced back, and a wall of green light bloomed as those blades cycled into a ring of guns, hard light condensed into a pillar of writhing energy at her fingertips. His eyes widened a little at the sight. That was an awful lot of energy. She flung it forward right into Cinder's startled face. Oh shit, Cinder's aura went up, then she went back. The ensuing explosion actually drew a small whistle from him. He watched with a winch as Cinder crashed out of the ring, skidded across the floor, and came to a crashing halt against a wall. He could have caught her well before that, even used his speed to block Penny's last attack there. But he hadn't. Defeat was a lesson everyone needed to learn, sooner or later. Pride brought even the mightiest of warriors low. And now Cinder had learned that lesson. Not only had she handicapped herself by refusing to use her blades, but by wearing her weights as well. Penny was young, but she knew next to nothing of restraint. She went into every battle and gave her all unless told otherwise. As such, victory was hers. Penny pumped a fist into the air. Victory belongs to me, cousin. Cinder thrashed upright. You cheated. I demand a rematch. Her cousin chirruped happily. I look forward to it. At least she was acting her age at last. Cinder! He cupped both hands to his mouth and called out to her. Don't hold back this time, you hear? She perked up, eyes ablaze. You mean... Just this once. I'll allow it. Show me the results of your training. Naruto fished out his scroll and snapped another picture for Willow as they went for round 2. 0.0, 0.0. And did dear Cinder win her rematch? Handily. Naruto sank into a seat opposite Nicholas as he finished recounting his tale. Wasn't much of a contest once she went all out. His father-in-law chortled softly and took a long drink from his mug. Defeat is a blade that cuts both ways, I suppose, so long as they both learn from it. Penny certainly seemed to have done so. She'd had a peculiar gleam in her eye when they'd bid her and Pietro goodbye for the evening. He wouldn't be surprised if she started pestering Cinder for training, which meant more morning sessions to be had from him. Watts would likely hear of this, which meant Alma would get involved. Fine by him. He didn't much mind the prospect of training up his nieces alongside the rest. Seems you had quite the adventure today. Something like that. He chuckled a little at the reminder. But you didn't call me here for this, did you? I did not know. He cracked open another bottle of wine and drank deeply. Thought. They'd retired to the old Schnee's study for the evening, both to have privacy and share a drink together. Willow had tucked Winter and the kids in long ago, then go to sleep herself, which was just as well, because she probably wouldn't like where this conversation was going. The flames of the hearth crackled quietly away beside them, casting dancing shadows across them room. Flickering figures danced across the room. Some almost looked like Grim. Perhaps that was his tipsy mind playing tricks on him. Nicholas took a long draught of his own and guffawed heavily. I'm getting old, my boy. There's no denying that. He rose with an effort, and Naruto couldn't help but notice how he leaned heavily upon his cane these days, whereas he'd scarcely needed the walking stick prior. I have the utmost respect for what you're trying to achieve here, even if I know I'll not be around to see it. He shuffled across the room, limping to his desk to retrieve something he couldn't see at this angle. Still, I have faith in you and Willow. Together, the two of you will undoubtedly lead the SDC into a new era. And besides, he winked his way over one shoulder, you've got the hair for it. Naruto absent-mindedly touched a hand to his once blonde locks, the trace of colour having finally given up the ghost long ago. It was so easy to still think of himself as blonde sometimes. There were days when he got up in the morning and almost didn't recognise the stranger staring back at him within the mirror, this man with ice-blue eyes, white hair, and a metal arm. The old him would have had a few things to say about how ruthless he'd become, but he wouldn't trade it for the world. It was precisely because of being ruthless that he'd been able to protect all he held dear. After all, ruthlessness is mercy upon ourselves. Sometimes he felt like a monster for that, and perhaps he was to some extent. Some certainly saw him as such, a great golden terror to all his foes. Salem hadn't made any overt moves against him yet, but it was only a matter of time before she figured out he was housing two maidens. Ozpin only knew of one. James was still pressuring him to share his secrets with the Atlesian military. Cinder and the kids were growing up. This quiet family life wouldn't last forever, no matter how much he might wish otherwise. Nicholas coughed again, harsher than before, a deep, rattling thing that seemed to shake his broad shoulders. He brought a handkerchief up to his mouth to muffle the noise, to no avail. Naruto stood to help him, and in doing so, glimpsed the flecks of blood on the tissue. I'm quite all right, he waved him off. I'm not done quite yet, although I wouldn't say no to another granddaughter or two before I go. Blasted lung cancer. His time was running out. No matter how much he healed him, no matter the damage he repaired, the fact remained. He was dying. He could combat it, maybe even slow it, but not stop it. Not fully. For all his skill and strength, he wasn't perfect. How many years did Nicholas have left? 10? 5? Less. He didn't want to consider it, but Nicholas laid a sheaf of papers on the table between them. This is a copy of my will. Read through it at your leisure. I've left everything to you and Willow. Not to mention, a crimson portal slashed open behind them, cutting that last thought painfully short. Ah, but you have a guest. Nicholas patted his shoulder. Don't let me keep you. Raven? What could she possibly want at this hour? Naruto considered the scarlet tether for a brief moment, then thought better of it. If he stepped through, he'd probably be stuck in Vale, and he didn't fancy the idea of running all the way back. In the end, he didn't have to, because a blade came flying through, skimmed past his face, and slammed into the wall. Naruto Uzumaki! Raven's voice howled from within the portal. You get over here right now! He winced a little. Can I not? Nicholas chuckled. That rather sounds like Raven. Naruto looked away. Nah, I'm sure it's nothing. Whiskers! How many people do you know that call you Whiskers? Right on cue, Raven stepped through the portal. Stormed, really. Her brilliant red eyes flitted between him and Nicholas, then narrowed now as she planted a fist on her hip. You been banging my best friend? The old Schnee chuckled. More grandchildren, I take it? Willow always was the willful sort. Naruto opened his mouth to reply. Never mind. Raven shouted him down. I don't want to hear. You're going to make it up to me, here and now. There's something I want to check on. Oddly demanding of her and desperate. A blonde brow rose. And what might that be? She scowled at him. My tribe. Chapter 32. Wake not the dragon. Stir not the tempest. Disturb him not. Tilda? Mongrels and madness. It was morning by the time they arrived in Mistral. Things weren't simple, of course. Nothing ever was. From all he'd heard Raven and Crow tell him of it, Naruto had thought Raven's precious tribe would be bigger somehow. Reality was often disappointing, and the Branwen tribe was no exception. In reality, it was little more than a moderately sized encampment, surrounded by rough wooden walls and manned by a great wooden gate, affixed to some sort of crank near the base. One that likely opened from the bottom to better allow the defenders to keep intruders out, as much as one might expect from a place in the wilderness. This place couldn't keep out a shinobi, much less a proper team of huntsmen. He could clear those walls in a single bound himself, to say nothing of those unsightly he sensed within. Really, there was only 1 or 2 souls in there that possessed anything more than middling strength. His kids could clear this place in their sleep. Which begged the question, why'd you drag me all the way out here, Raven? She didn't answer him. Unsurprising, given that she hadn't spoken a word on the flight over either. Her gaze remained fixed on the tribe's wooden gaze with a curious intensity. one he couldn't quite place. Something was bothering her, but if she had thoughts to share, she remained keen to keep them close to her chest. "It had to be you," she said at last. "No one else would do." He elbowed her. "Why not bring Ty then? Or Crow?" "Because—" She glanced at him with a growl, sounding like he'd all but dragged the word out of her. "My brother's busy with that bunny bitch of his and Ty's, out on another date with Goodwitch." Glinda. His brow shot into his hair and he couldn't quite keep the smile from his face. "That lucky bastard." "Good for him. When did that happen?" "How did that happen?" She huffed. "I don't know and I don't care." Boo. But she really did care, didn't she? He could feel the depth of her emotions simmering like a dying star. The absence of Team STRQ had her heart pounding and blood pumping, to say nothing of her stressel. Comfort her. The mark on his hand tingled again, and annoyed, he clenched his hand into a fist. "What about Summer?" "What about her?" She gave him a shove. "She's sick, all right. Leave her out of this." Concern peaked within him. "Is she all right? I can run over to Vale, and he'll—" "This isn't nothing you can fix, dumbass." "Gotta let it run its course." He blinked, baffled. "Course?" "Come on." They approached the gate at a sedate pace, or rather Raven did. He trailed after her, hands clasped behind his head, made mildly curious by her last remark. 2 sentries confronted them at the entrance, a pair of rough and tumble-looking men clad in loose leather armor. They'd even gone so far as to shave their heads, completing the uniform look. The taller of the 2 looked their way and grinned, exposing missing rotten yellowed teeth. "Well, well, well," he rasped in a voice made hoarse from God's knew what. "Look who the Beowulf dragged in." "If ain't Branwen," the younger of the duo sneered. "Hello, traitor. Come skulking back after all these years?" His good eye strayed toward Naruto. "You brought us a nice prize." "Nice suit, pal. Think I'll take it." Alas, the older guard promptly thumped him over the head with his pistol before he could finish the digging that hole. "Quiet, you! Do you even know who that is?" "Some prick in a white suit." Another thump followed the first. "That's the freaking Schnee. The man who massacred Menagerie." "Bloody rumors." Naruto winced. "I didn't exactly massacre Menagerie, you know." Kurama sighed in his head. "No, but we did kill a lot of insane terrorists that day." Is it any wonder the tale took on a life of its own? Fair enough. Rumors were a bitch. Might as well play into them. Anything to get this over with quickly. He quirked a brow at them, idly adopting a menacing scowl. "I have a name." The older guard practically bowed and scraped as he wrung his hand. "Yes, sir, your Schneeness. Solus." Raven spoke up at last to address the older man. If she was at all amused by his ruse, she didn't show it. "Who leads the tribe these days?" "Jade's dead," came the reply. "Vasir runs the joint now." Raven blinked. "That little runt?" "Not a runt anymore." Solus shook his head. "She's strong now, she's powerful, she's got a semblance unlike anything I've ever seen." "Took the old boss down with one attack." Naruto's right ear twitched, noticing the awe in the man's voice. Curious. Raven outright ignored it. "Don't ask, didn't care." "Open the gate." "Now, hold on." The younger guard flung out an arm with a smirk. "We'll be needin' the Schnee's weapon." "His lean, too," said Smirk turned ugly. "Consider it a contribution to the cause." Naruto sighed through his nose. "Buddy, that's not even a word." Raven gave the youngster all the respect he was owed, which us, to say none at all. "Don't touch him. He's my prize." He hawked and spat at her feet. "Why should I listen to some washed-up traitor?" Solus growled under his breath. "Leave it, Sean." "You're in over your head," Raven tutted. "Listen to your mentor, boy." "Or what? I heard you've gone soft." Omen flew free from its sheath, slashed the air once, and slid back in thrice as fast. The bandits between them blinked among themselves, utterly baffled. Sean sneered. "Was that supposed to do something?" Raven held up a finger, tasting the wind. "Wait for it." And then, the younger man's fingers fell to the floor with a wet thump. Alongside his hand, wrist, elbow, alongside a good bit of his shoulder besides, each. Seam screamed and crumpled to his knees, clutching at what might well be a mortal wound. With that much bleeding, he'd likely be dead within minutes. Still, he might survive if he got medical attention. Naruto stowed the instinctive urge to heal him and whistled instead. "You've been practicing." Here at last, Raven preened beneath the praise. She turned to face the surviving guard. "Open the gate." Solus looked back to his mortally wounded companion. "Don't need to tell me twice." Pivoting, he turned and thumped his fist against the wood palisade. It cracked open, and together they slipped through. And still the question nagged at him. "Why are we here?" he asked again. Raven didn't say a word. She kept walking, forcing him to follow her in. Their arrival attracted no small amount of attention. Rough-looking men, women, and even the occasional child glared their way. He pitied them, not just to have been raised in a lifestyle, but to never have been given a chance to be anything better. They weren't down on her luck like his kids had been when he'd found them. They'd willingly chosen to embrace the tribe and all the wrongness that came with it, enabled by all those around them, until any chance of them being better was well and truly swept away. A small part of him wept for what they could have been. "You would do well here, if you like." Raven's sudden remark had him looking her way with a scowl. "The strong rule, and you're one of the strongest by far. Is that why we're here?" He couldn't quite keep the bitter note from his voice. "You showing me off to the family?" Raven snorted. "Mum would have hated you. Might have gotten on with Dad, though. Trying to recruit me?" She fell silent once more, guiding him through the throngs of bandits until they reached their destination. Alas, said destination turned out to be nothing more than a great looming tent planted in the center of the camp, larger than all the others. Ugly thing, too. There could no denying that. It was all blue and black and purple cloth mounted atop a wooden deck held together by cords of leather. The latter was even less impressive by the complete lack of care made evident on the outside. Bits of half-eaten food and discarded drinks lay strewn across the boards. He could even see a rusty sword stabbed into one of the steps, and atop it a woman's severed head, left there to rot in the elements without a care in the world. 100 Lien says that's the last leader of the tribe. Naruto scoffed at Kurama. No bet. Ran cupped both hands on either side of her face and hollered, "Vasir, get your ass out here!" The tent flap parted and a baleful blue bitch emerged, clad in dark blue plated armor. Vasir was, well, he could only assume she was a faunus. Her skin was certainly very blue, her eyes dark as black diamonds, and her scalp a close crop of strange tentacles that someone matched the writing tattoos on her face. He'd never quite seen someone quite like her before, and he wasn't sure that was a good thing. She radiated bloodlust and lazy disdain, quiet contempt for the world at large. Said emotions were only mirrored by the bandits gathering round her. His sixth sense shrilled a warning, but no attack came. What was he missing here? And then she saw them. A Schnee? She quirked a blue brow at him, leering like he was some fine jewel to be plucked. "In my camp? Seems this is my lucky day." Raven coughed. "Oh, you're here too, Branwen." The self-proclaimed leader of the tribe flicked an errant glance her way and dismissed her in the same instant. "Didn't notice you over there, weakling. Is your weak ass bother with you?" Raven rolled her eyes, refusing to rise to the bait. "You always did enjoy your insults." "The only insult I see here is you." Her lower lip curled in disdain. "You left." "I did," she granted her a nod, "but I'm back now." "So you are." Vasir considered her for a long moment, then tilted her head. "Why are you here, Raven?" "Come to beg our forgiveness and rejoin the tribe." A low chuckle passed through those assembled behind them. "I might just grant your wish if you give me the Schnee. Get down on your knees and kiss my boot." Naruto stilled. Raven wouldn't return to these monsters, would she? No, surely not. She was better than that. She'd changed, hadn't she? "You attacked the city of Mistral." Raven's retort had him zeroing in on her again. Why? Had she? That was news to him. Then again, he'd been focused on his family and Atlas of late. Anima was an entire continent away. "Lionheart is weak," Vasir scoffed. "His people don't respect him. More die under him every year. Is it any wonder his huntsmen and huntresses abandon him in droves?" Raven exhaled slowly, a quiet sigh of naked attempt that idly drew his eye her way. "You're going to get the tribe killed, Vasir." The fauna scoffed and crossed both arms over her bosom. "The tribe is mine to do with as I please." "Not anymore." "Is that why you're here after all these years?" She planted a fist on her hip. "To challenge me for leadership?" Raven didn't rise to the bait. Naruto wasn't sure if that was a good thing. "You know, I heard all about you." Vasir leaned forward, teeth flashing in the light. "You and Crow were the best the tribe had back then. That's why you were sent away, to learn the tricks of the academies and bring them back to us. But you've gone native in Beacon. Soft." She hawked at the ground and spat. "Weak. Yet now you bring a Schnee to my camp. What the hell are you up to?" Raven laughed abruptly. It wasn't soft or pleasant, like Willow in summer, more a sharp, savage snarl of brutal derision. But it ended as quickly as it began. She threw her head back, shook it once, and snapped her gaze back down with a sneer that would have made a grim cry. "Look at you," she crooned darkly. "Big bad Vasir. How far you've come." Her arms spread wide as she turned to face the bandits behind them, slowly circling in place. "I remember how you used to follow me and crow around like a lost puppy. I remember how afraid you were of fighting. I remember the day you wet your pants at the sight of your own blood during that first raid." The tribe rumbled. None dared laugh, but the whispers began. Vasir snarled. "You dare? I'll do a whole lot more than dare." Raven reached for Omen's hilt. "Unlike you, I actually back up my word and don't get off on attacking the defenseless. You've really gone and lost it, haven't you?" The Faunus woman clicked her tongue in open scorn. "Is the schnee that good in bed?" Naruto damn near choked on his own spit. Raven's reaction was worse. A fierce flush shot up her neck, and she could have sworn he saw her hair lift for a second. Then she recovered, tilted her head to one side, and smiled at her. The sight of it chilled him to his core in more ways than one. "Aren't you a brave bitch today? Where did that weak little crybaby go?" The tribe shuffled around them. Naturally, Vasir went with the only avenue of attack left to her, the quick recourse. "So you admit it, then? You're in bed with him." Naruto felt he really should say something here, but he was just too fascinated by the byplay here. Raven was ready to erupt, and he was curious to see how she would react. "Right." She blew out a breath of annoyance, a long, shuddering sigh. "You had your chance." Vasir sneered, ignorant of the landmine she'd trod upon. "What you gonna do?" Something that should have been done a long time ago. Omen burst free from its sheath hilt first and burst forward like a missile. It struck Vasir in the gut, blasting the air from her lungs before could even conceive of mustering her aura. The startled Faunus wasn't a huntress after all. She doubled over with a gasp, left clutching at her stomach for air that would never came. Raven sauntered, stalked, up the steps after her, grabbed her by the hair tentacles and yanked her close. "Who's the wilking now?" She didn't give her a chance to answer. Omen punched through her gut and burst out her back in a shower of blood. Vasir gurgled wetly. She was still choking for air when Raven kicked her of the deck and down into her fellows. The impact was devastating, sending many a man and woman flying. Only then did Raven deign to face him at long last. "Oi, Whiskers, you gonna stand around there and smirk all day, or are you gonna help me beat these bastards down?" "Ah, so that's why we're here." "We are." She flicked Omen outward, shedding Vasir's blood from it in a bloody arc. "Crow and I will never return to the tribe, and so they must die. All things must die. So they must." His cheeks creased in a smile. "Well, all right then." Raven launched herself off the deck and into the thick of the tribe. Omen cut a bloody swathe through everyone. He let her have her fun and turned to face the nearest bandit with a warm, sunny smile. Credit where it was due, they were quick on the draw and shot him in the head. He even lowered his aura and let the bullet land, though he could have dodged. You see, he had a point to make. Time to terrify. The path of the righteous man and defender is beset on all sides by the iniquity of the selfish and the tyranny of evil men. Naruto shook his head, grunted now as the wound closed. The bullet fell out his head and landed at his feet. It's different when you're on the receiving end, when you're the little guy. Let's see how you handle someone who can fight back. Smiling, he grabbed the man by the arms. Snap, crunch, thud. Bones take a while to mend, you know. He smiled down at the fellow he'd just felled before looking to the next. Even longer than muscle. But the mind? Oh, that's a fragile thing indeed. Let me show you. He flared Kurama's cloak, overkill really, and waded in. A mace slammed into his head and shattered. Annoyed, he drove a Rasengan backward and eviscerated its owner. Then another, and another. From there, the world dissolved into a glorious red blender of violence, and he found himself at the center of it all, ripping and tearing, shredding and slaying with reckless abandon. Anyone who came close suffered the same fate. He tore them apart. Something slammed into him. Flames seared his back, drawing his ire, and an annoyed growl as a score of bandits went down screaming, engulfed in the inferno. He glimpsed Vasir rising out the corner of his gaze, still alive somehow. Utterly uncaring for the collateral damage she'd inflicted. Clutching her wound, she was wobbly on her feet, but her eyes were banked by baleful flames. Familiar flames. His eyes widened. Another maiden? Are you kidding me? Am I a magnet for these? She flung a hand at him. No, past him, he realized. She had found another target. Her gaze roved past him and found Raven in the thick of things, cutting another bandit down. Pressing 2 fingers together, she took aim. In her wrath, her rage, her hate, she unleashed hell. Branwen! There was no time, no choice. Raven! Move! 0.0, someone shouted at her. Raven scarcely heard in the chaos. Her blood was up, she gloried in the slaughter and all it entailed. Right up until an awful crack of sound filled the air. Lightning flashed. Thunder rolled. She felt someone shove her aside, but foolishly she resisted and dug her heels in. Mistakes were made. Blood spattered her face, and with it came a curious numb sensation, then weightlessness. She looked down, eyes wide, unable to comprehend what she found there. There was a gaping, burnt, sizzling hole the size of a fist in her chest, right where her left lung should be. Her legs buckled beneath her. Everything went dark. The last thing she heard was Naruto's scream. Chapter 33. Let me ask you something. Does a maiden like yourself ever experience fear? Tilda, a legend. Maidens and massacre, she can't die. It was Naruto's only thought, the first thing that registered in his mind as he watched Raven's lifeless corpse collapse at his feet. She wasn't meant to die. Team STRQ had been a facet of his life for so long now, the idea of them dying to a cheap shot was anathema to him. She's not supposed to die like this. Reality reasserted itself with a lurch. His body knew what to do, even if his mind didn't. Kurama saw to that. He launched himself forward at Raven's still form. A screaming bandit tried to get in his way, and in righteous recompense for their temerity, he stove their face in with an open palm, all but tearing the top of their head from their shoulders. He snatched up their rusty machete before it could hit the ground and burying it into the chest of another. That one pitched backward with a gurgle, and he kicked their corpse into their fellows, sending dozens of men and women sprawling. The sudden savagery, fatality, brought the other's tribesman and woman up short. He used the opening to crouch beside Branwen's body. He knelt, grimaced at her wound at the hole in her chest, and frantically went to work, hand glowing gold. I can fix this, such was his next thought. I healed Guy before and he was nearly dead. I can fix this. She was still breathing, if only just, desperately convulsing as she choked for air that refused to come. Her eyes met his, wide and startled and panicked, and he had an awful premonition of what was to come. No, no, no. You're okay. I can fix this. Give me a second. She gurgled wetly and fumbled for his hand. I'm sorry. Don't. There's nothing to be sorry about, damn it. Raven smiled weakly. Not your fault. She stopped breathing. Naruto knew it because he felt her heart stop in that instant, the life leave her body. She closed her eyes and went limp in his arms, head slumping to one side. His mind blanked right out. In his need, his greed, his urge to do a good deed, he tried to ignore what his senses were telling him. He kept pouring chakra into her body, restored her lung and closed her wounds. He took so much of his own life force and pushed it into her until her skin shimmered, but still she didn't wake up. Didn't even twitch. Her eyes wouldn't open. She couldn't awaken. Didn't rise. Her body, once warm, began to go cold in his arms. Now it was his turn to tremble. Please don't go away. A bitter breeze blew across the camp, tugging at his blonde bangs. He wasn't sure what happened next, what came over him. It just hurt. In an instant, all his sundry schemes and stratagems flew right out the window. And in their place, he didn't know what he felt. It wasn't sadness or sorrow, and it certainly wasn't relief, but an altogether different emotion, one he couldn't quite quantify. A lone tear welled up in his right eye and rolled down his cheek, dripping down onto her face. Kurama murmured words of comfort, but he scarcely heard them. He'd been fond of Raven in his own way, he realized. Sure, she was a pain in the ass, but she was his pain in the ass. And now she was gone. He bit his lip to choke down on a snarl. It wasn't supposed to be this way. Golden chakra flared around him. You were supposed to live. A shout tore out of him. Live! Blue and gold chakra swarm around his body, bleeding into green as the colours mingled. More tears came. The wind rose, tugging at his hair. All his emotions so tightly bound down tore free with a vengeance. His face twitched once, twice, thrice now. Oi! He heard Kurama's voice, but it sounded so distant, so faint, that he could scarcely comprehend it. Calm down! You're about to calm down? How could he possibly calm down? It wasn't fair. Naruto closed his eyes, threw his head back, and screamed. That same blazing light burst from his body, washed over Raven's corpse and seared into the sky, a terrible pillar of unholy radiance to scorch the very clouds themselves. The heavens themselves dimmed, darkened now, the earth cracking and splintering underfoot, great jagged spires of earth bursting from the soil as his voice peaked further and further into insanity. The sky itself drew down around him as though to embrace him in his moment of pain. The very fabric of reality shifted. Even the air in his throat felt like it would ignite at the slightest provocation. Naruto saw none of this, of course. Felt none of it either. He kept screaming, howling imprecations, curses, oaths, swears, a tide of vile vitriol seemingly without end. Kill them. He'd kill them all. Each of them, all of them, every last one of them, and burn them all. Oh, what's wrong, Schnee? And then Vasir's laughter rippled behind him, hoarse and harsh. Did I upset you? Are you sad that bitch couldn't stand up to my power? Well, swallow it. She straightened up as he looked on, an ugly, smiling tearing across her face as the survivors of the tribe rallied to her. Because she won't be the last to go. You'll be joining her soon enough. It was like flicking a switch. His eyes snapped open and cries cut off. Her words gave his fury a focus, his ire an outlet. He tucked his chin into his chest and glared down at the malevolent maiden. Is that all you have to say for yourself? The bandit blinked. Huh? He pushed himself upright, rising woodenly without a care in the world. I was asking you if those were your last words. Naruto, Kurama's voice rose over the clamor in his ears. Whatever you're thinking, don't. Too late. His fist found her face and smashed her down into the ground. Once, twice, thrice now to make certain she was out cold. He walked past her stunned form, grabbed the pair of bandits beside her, one to each hand, and crushed their skulls in his grasp. They popped like overripe grapes. Blood spattered his face, but he barely felt it, hardly registered it at all. He flickered forward, found his next target in a woman wielding dual hatchets. He punched her in half, stepped over her corpse, and moved onto the next, a burly brute of a man with more muscle than brains. On a whim, he actually let that hulking barbarian hit him. The man's fist shattered on his cheek, as did his arm, followed by the rest of him as he ripped him asunder. From there, he moved onto the next bandit and the next and the next. On and on he went, weaving a wave of blue and gold-green devastation amongst them. He took no pleasure in the slaughter, no glee, no joy, just cold anger and the bitter relief of vengeance. He hunted them through the camp and spared none. He did what must be done. There was no hesitation, no mercy. Anyone that he found, he killed. It was slow, thorough work. He couldn't be sure how much time passed. Seconds? Minutes? Hours? Surely not. Annoyingly enough, Vasir recovered quickly and dared to stand in the midst of this slaughter. Why you? She should have played dead. He laughed at her for her foolishness. Congratulations. Vasir edged backward, made wary by his words. Excuse me? No, really. Naruto rounded on her, clapping both hands together with a death's head grin that practically split his face in two. Congrats. You have my attention now. My undivided attention. He ripped his torn jacket away and cast it by the wayside, flexed his metal arm and started walking her way with slow, sedate steps. The entirety of my focus fixated firmly upon you. I hope you're happy. I hope it's everything you planned for, everything you wanted, everything you wished for. A stay bandit ducked around an overturned tent and tried to shoot him while he spoke. He glared their way and they promptly evaporated on the spot. I actually felt sorry for you people at first, that you never had a chance to be anything better, but I don't care anymore. You can all just... He placed his hands together and inhaled deeply, filling his lungs with pure chakra, kneading it, moulding it to his whims, letting it swell within his chakra coils until he was sure they would shatter from the strain. Some of the tribe realized what he was up to and turned to flee. Others dove for cover. Good instincts. It wouldn't save them. Had he been alive and present in this world, Madara would have grinned like a maniac. He'd settle for the memory of the man's penultimate attack. A single word's parted his lips. Die. What followed wasn't a fireball, but something far greater. He roared, and an almighty wall of searing fire burst forth from his lips to surge toward the bandits, covering the distance between them in an instant. Vasir flung up a towering wall of ice between herself and the blast, only to be engulfed by it. She vanished. As did the rest of the tribe. The entire camp was consumed in the blaze that followed. Naruto closed both his ears and heart to what followed. The howls of pain, the shrieks of agony, the pleas for mercy. Summer wouldn't like this. Taeyang and Crow couldn't possibly understand why he was doing what he was doing. Willow would understand, however. All things must die. That includes bandits. Especially them. Eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, evil for evil. They'd taken Raven away, so he was going to take everything from them. It was only fair. He'd thought it wasn't personal before. He'd been wrong. Or perhaps he'd simply lied to himself. It was very personal. By the time the blaze finally gutted out 5 minutes later, all that remained of Vasir's tribe was rubble and ruin. If anyone had survived that, they weren't eager to make themselves known. He could sense some life signs in the burnt rubble, but so few of the tribe remained, those willing to fight even less so. He'd root them out later, because right now his focus was elsewhere. A small part of him hoped Vasir had managed another miraculous survival. That one didn't deserve a quick death. He wanted to break her. Somewhere ahead of him, a piece of rubble shifted noisily. There she was. No. There could be no escape. Not from him. Let me ask you something. He grinned and called out into the haze after her. Does a maiden like yourself ever experience fear? A low whimper was his reward, and he spied a flash of burnt blue fleeing in the smoke. Was she running away? How quaint. Vasir actually thought she could escape. Go ahead, he hallooed after her. Run for it! Makes it more fun for me. Naruto whistled lowly, ominously, and gave chase. 0.0. A continent away, Willow's head snapped up with a start. The smallest of shivers shook her shoulders. I've got a bad feeling about this. Chapter 34. You're nothing, just a bandit. A twisted, vile little creature who killed her way to the top, killed my friend, tried to kill me, made me wish you had. You scare folks. You scare a lot of people. You think that gives you power over me? Think it makes you important? Special? No, not special. Weak, puny, human. You're nothing. Any power you have now, you didn't earn that. Someone gave it to you. Who was it? Who was the maiden before you? Tell me, now, or I'll smash you. Tilda the Beast unleashed. Smash Vasir ran headlong into the mist. She ran not just for safety, but her very life. Naruto, her death, walked after her with slowly, lazy steps. She couldn't see him in the frenzied fog, but she could hear him. Ever close, ever behind her, which meant she couldn't escape him. No escape! Never! No matter what she did. No matter how fast she ran. No matter which direction. Worse still, she didn't know which way was out. The mist prevented her from seeing a damn thing. Damn thing had come out of nowhere before she could think to flee the tribe, trapping her in the compound. She couldn't see her own nose in front of her face for crying out loud. But while it blinded her, it left her remaining sensing terribly, painfully intact. Her gut wound ached with every step, her mouth tasted drier than vacuo, and all around her the awful acrid scent of burnt flesh filled her nose. Perhaps worst of all was her ability to hear, because you see, she could hear them all. The cries of the dead and dying gasps for mercy that only came in the form of a gurgling death as the Schnee extinguished their lives. He was hunting them, extinguishing them, one by one. Was this the afterlife? Had she fallen into hell? It certainly felt like it. Slashing a hand through the haze, she snarled at him. Show yourself! What is this? Hidden mist jutsu. Hidden mist what now? Was this some kind of semblance? Vasir rounded on the voice behind her and subsequently choked down a whimper as the mist parted momentarily to reveal her tormentor. He'd retrieved Branwen's blade at some point. It looked like he knew how to use it, too. The crimson sword ran red with dripping blood. His once white suit stood stained with viscera. His metal arm held the remnants of someone's spine, which he now threw down at her feet. Despite that, he was smiling. Somehow it was the smile that terrified her more than anything else. I wasn't the one to create this particular jutsu, of course. He prattled on. idly running his free hand through the fog, trailing wisps of steam as it went. That was Zabuza. You learn all sorts of things from your enemies, you know. And I've had nothing but time to learn. But you, his gaze slid her way, you taught me something else. Raven's sword smashed down into her raised arm, biting into her armor to draw blood. She nearly lost the limb outright. Braving the blade in both hands, the smiling Schnee forced her down to a knee. When I face an enemy, I'll break them. He leaned in suddenly, nose brushing hers. They get one chance, and since you were so kind as to waste yours, allow me to thank you. A jarring headbutt stunned her before she could bring her power to bear. As she reeled, Naruto caught her injured hand by the fingers. Raven's weapon stabbed down into her foot, pinning her in place. It's funny, you know? I thought I'd be angry now that's dead. And I am. He casually broke her pinky finger as he spoke, bending it backward with a horrific crack, careless of her cries. But I don't think I've fully processed it yet. I'm sure I'll be furious in a minute. Vasir screamed and flung a lightning bolt in his face. His head twisted, letting the javelin of light race past. Sloppy, he chided her. His fist found her face and twisted. She knew it because she felt something crack in her jaw, then her neck, followed by the rest of her body. Aura could protect you from injuries, even heal them over time. Everyone knew that, but it couldn't last forever, and hers was running mighty low. Her anger wasn't. Burn! She lashed out in a fit of pique, blasting him with a fireball. Naruto's ripped Raven's blade from her foot and cut the flame in half, only for another to catch him in the chest. He let it propel him back into the mist with a smirk. Vasir realized her mistake a second too late. Damn it all, she'd lost track of him again. Panicking, she lashed out again, hurling fireball after fireball into the murk. Nothing. She grit her teeth furiously. Wind had never been her thing. Fire and ice and lightning in time, sure, but she'd never truly been able to command gale force storms. Unlike that brat, the one she'd killed. She'd been able to use damn near everything. Pain blossomed in her wounded leg and her body buckled back to reality with a gasp. She screamed into the mist. "Oh, you think I'm afraid of you?" "I don't think you are. I know you are." His voice rang behind her. "You're terrified." Omen bit into her back, carving an ugly wound between her shoulders. She whirled, fingers crackling with ice, but he was already gone. Yet his voice echoed on. Raven died, gasping for air. She was afraid. "Now it's your turn." A fresh slice opened across her cheek, drawing blood. She lashed out, fingers grasping and momentarily finding a handhold in the shoulder of his bloody white suit. The second she found purchase, she lost 2 fingers, felt the searing edge of Omen bite clean through them. Recoiling, she lost her grip on him, and he vanished back into the fog. Vasir felt her heart beat sluggishly in her chest. Had to find him, and quick. He'd bleed her to death at this rate. Clutching her bloody hand to her chest, she howled at him. "Where are you?" Hands burst from the dirt below her feet and seized her ankles. She had an instant to balk, then she was yanked down, buried up to her neck in the dirt. Omen slashed down out of the mist, ready to take her head. She blasted her way free in an explosion of fire, narrowly diverting the blade. She saw a shadow in the fog and slugged it. Her fist found purchase in Naruto's face. His head snapped to the side with an audible crack, and he snapped it back with a snarl. Raven died to this. Her eyes widened. Shit! He's on a whole nother level. Have to retreat before... Metal fingers caught her wrist and bent it backward. Her arm snapped like a dry twig. A keening noise pushed past Vasir's lips, but she didn't have time to process the pain, because there was more. Omen tore through her shoulder, nearly taking her arm clean off at the collarbone. It would have too, if she hadn't wrenched herself aside and torn the wound open. Why? Naruto stormed after her. Why you? Why did she let her guard down? Damn it! If she couldn't hurt him physically, then... Because that bitch was weak. Naruto twitched. Gotcha. She did because she was weak, because you made her so. Clutching her wound, Vasir sneered up at him, laughing through bloody teeth. The old Raven never would have fallen to a sneak attack like that. Throck! His fist found her wound and tore a gasp from her. I've seen guys and gals like you all my life. A hand closed around her head and dragged her upright. Smart dumbasses too brilliant to know what they don't know. Those cold blue eyes gleamed gold, and suddenly the hand holding her head became a crushing vice, potent and cruel. Take 'em off script, take them down to the streets. He dropped her and swept her legs, sending her sprawling to the ground. Over to the dojo. A knee cracked down into her back. Into the gym. An open palm struck her chin. Then back to the streets again. He stomped down on her bad leg, drawing a scream from her, forcing her to tumble aside. Show 'em what they don't know. His elbow slammed into her nose as she rose. Then, suddenly, all that brilliance, all that smart, dumbass planning. 1, 2, 3, 4. His fists played havoc on her ribs for Eve more. Isn't worth bunk. Vasir crumpled at his feet, wasted and gasping for air. What's wrong? He stared down at her lifelessly, as though she were no one. Nothing. No, less than nothing. You were laughing earlier, but you're not laughing now. He kicked her down and pain flashed through her back. She'd landed on her wound, the same spot where Raven had run her, though. Go on, laugh. He stomped down on her stomach and made her spew. Laugh. Another stomp. Laugh! Vasir brought her hands together with a shriek and froze him solid where he stood, rendering him a human ice sculpture. Shut! She rolled over onto her hands and knees, coughing and wheezing for air. Your damn mouth! It wasn't over. That wouldn't hold him for long. Had to run, had to get away before he got loose. The ice shattered behind her. She rounded on it with a gasp. Mistakes were made, and they were yours. Naruto's metal hand cut across her face, tearing 5 fearsome furrows into her flesh. It must have raked one of her eyes too, because the left side of her vision went came the pain. Too little, too late. An ominous whine filled the air. Vasir whimpered and brought her faltering aura to bear. Too little, too late. Far too late. Rasengan. Blood sprayed through the air, taking most of her armor with it. Her back struck a wooden barrier and she doubled over, retching. With that, the sky opened up above at long last, and with it came rain. Softly at first, then with vigor, sharp, stinging sheets of it peppering her exposed flesh. Here at last, the mist began to fade. She immediately wished it hadn't. Naruto strode through the rain. He wasn't alone. Somehow, some way, he was flanked by 2 copies of himself, each wearing a grim scowl. What in the blue hell? He stared at her for a long moment. And then, with neither word nor warning, it began. The leftmost doppelganger slugged her, a devastating roundhouse that snapped her head to one side and left her spitting teeth. She was still reeling when the right waded in and decked her in return. More blood and teeth. On and on it went. The duo beat her down into the mud. Hurts, doesn't it? Dimly she heard Naruto's voice echoing above it all as they beat her half to death. I'm sure most of your victims felt like this before you killed them. Weak, powerless, ganged up on in the rain with no way out. Now it's your turn. I hope you enjoy it. Another clone decked her. She tried to marshal her maiden powers, but she couldn't. They slipped through her grasp like so much rain. None of this was what she'd been promised. They said he was weak. They told her. They said it would be easy to lure him and the Branwen bitch away from Atlas. They said, oh, a dull realization overtook her. I've been used. A hand seized her by the hair tentacles and hauled her upright. You're nothing, just an up-jumped bandit. Blazing blue orbs drilled into her good eye, his gaze blazing like black balefire. A twisted, vile little creature who killed her way to the top, killed my friend, tried to kill me, made me wish you had. He gave her body a shake, and she hadn't the strength to resist. You scare folks. Hell, you scare a lot of people. You think that gives you power over me? Think it makes you important? Special? No, not special. Omen came swooping in again. Swooping was bad, and weakly, Vasir tried to raise her right hand to defend. With a sizzling sputter, her aura finally failed. Raven's blade met minimal resistance and passed through. Steel met flesh and the latter yielded. He lopped it off at the wrist. Numb, she stared at the severed stump, squirting violet blood. She hadn't thought she had it left in her to scream. Apparently she did. Weak! She shouted down at her. Puny. A fist smashed her down into the mud again, cutting her shrieks short. Human. She prayed he'd drown her there, but her prayers weren't answered. Instead, he grabbed her by the chin again and brought Omen up under her neck. From there, his clones took a hold of her, one to each arm, dragging her throat closer to that bloody blade. You're nothing! Any power you have now. You didn't earn that. Someone gave it to you. The blade bit into her flesh, ready to take her head. She almost prayed it would. Death was a mercy. Who was it? Naruto roared at her, towering in his fury. Who was the maiden before you? Tell me. or I'll smash you. Not more pain. Anything but that. It was a kid, she blubbered brokenly. We found her in our last raid. She had power and I wanted it, so I killed her and took it. Blood bubbled up under Omen's blade. How did it happen? Speak! I stabbed her in the back while she was killing my boys. Wrong thing to say. Omen jerked away from her fist and slammed into her side, puncturing her pelvis, twisting in her guts. She cried out, "By the brother gods, what are you?" He didn't answer her, not at first. Instead, he thrust 5 furled fingers into her face, digits curled into a claw, pausing just inches shy of her mangled nose. Much to her horror, a keening sphere sparked to life within his open palm. Behind them, a pillar of golden light pierced the storm. 0.00. Life. Everything came burning back in a heady rush. Where once there had only been darkness and despair, there was now light. So much light. Bright and sharp and stinging and everywhere and everyone and everything all at once. It filled her. It was her. And yet it was not of her. She couldn't think of any other explanation. No other word would do. She hugged her arms closed to herself, seeking comfort, only to gasp at what she found there. In an instant, she became keenly aware of the swelling radiance around her, of the air in her lungs, of her own hammering heart. It felt like her body would burst if she didn't let it out, if she didn't vent it on someone or something right now. For a single blinding instant, she couldn't remember anyone or anything. Not even her own name. The moment passed and memories trickled back in slowly, painfully, heavier than the rainstorm soaking her skin. What had happened? She remembered pain. Gasping for air that refused to come, someone holding her as the world went dark, and death. She had died, hadn't she? There had been a terrible emptiness, oblivion, the void. Something, someone, had plucked her out of it. She remembered a white room and a voice. A presence? She couldn't recall. She remembered words, shouting, screaming. Why? She dragged a hand across her face and sucked in a ragged breath. Why she couldn't remember the rest? Because, something answered her, a deep voice echoing in her bones, shaking her very soul. I do not wish you to recall the terrible truths you trifled with, nor the lesson you learned, or what your future might have been. That damn voice. It sounded so familiar. Why couldn't she recall? You will not remember me. Consider it a mercy ignorance is bliss. Understanding of the higher plane is something not to trifle with lightly. Growling, she pressed that same hand to her fevered forehead. Damn it, her skull hurt. That was not my doing. He has unwittingly made you more than you were, and in respect for that which you have become, to which you've ascended, you have been granted a second chance. There will not be a third, her brow furrowed. Chance? This is the last time I directly interfere in mortal affairs, Raven Branwen. The bond between the two of you, once broken, is now restored. I will be watching you both. Reality lurched back and she looked down, squinting against the rain. Do not disappoint me. Someone had burned a hole through her jacket and bra besides, exposing her bosom. She glimpsed a strange golden sigil there, carved in the shape of a dragon. She flushed and fumbled at it to no avail. Strange tattoo aside, the fabric was ruined. Great. One of her tits was out. That wasn't embarrassing at all. Tying a hastily knot to bind the frayed fabric together, she swayed to her feet and took a moment to survey her surroundings. Someone had snatched her sword while she was out. No, never mind that. The tribe was a mess, burnt and charred and soaked clean through. Amidst the wreckage, she glimpsed a handful of burnt and battered survivors, several of which were just as shocked to see her in one piece as she was them. She balked at them and they balked right back, because there, standing in the center of it all, Vasir sprawled at his feet, poised to deliver the finishing blow. Naruto? He stiffened at the sound of her voice but didn't turn to face her, as though he were afraid. Bullshit. Whiskers wasn't scared of shit. Hey! She raised her voice to shout, then immediately cursed herself for the tremor in it. You finished without me. His shoulders trembled in the rain. You're not real! Yeah. Okay, maybe she deserved that after the scare she'd given him. This feels real. Vasir gurgled at his feet. You gotta be kidding me! Lightning flashed as Naruto drove a vicious kick into the maiden's ribs. Raven winced at the telltale crack of bone that followed, then kicked her again for good measure, causing the broken faunus to curl inward on herself. A peal of high thunder rumbled through the clouds overhead. Did I say you could talk? A third kick dragged a whimper from their hated foe. Corpses shouldn't speak. His right hand flashed up, and belatedly, she realized he was holding Omen, bringing it down to stab. Why don't you just do us all a favor and DI... In hindsight, Raven couldn't say what made her move exactly, only that something did. She stepped forward, stumbled once, and grabbed his wrist. It was a token gesture more than anything else. She knew she couldn't stop him if he took it into his head to end her life. Even then nearly yanked her off feet. Recognizing her as a threat, he rounded on her at last. She'd never seen him move so fast in all her life. "That's my sword," she muttered. "Give it back." Naruto pivoted, finally looked at her, saw her and froze. Poor bastard looked like he just might burst into tears right now. It made something twitch in her chest. Raven wasn't sure if she liked it or not. Then he was upon her. Blondie hit her like a truck. One moment he was ready to finish off Vasir. In the next he was there, grabbing her, arms slamming down around her like bars of steel as he buried his head into her shoulder. She spluttered even more so when she heard him sniffle against her. Was he crying? Her eyes began to sting. Must be all this rain. "Don't do that to me again." His arms tightened around her. I thought Oh God, your heart was beating too damn fast. Hey! Raven squirmed against him, burning red. "That's enough touchy-feely shit! Let me go!" Naruto did just that, held her at arm's distance, and stared. And he was still staring. "Oi!" She scowled at him furiously. "What are you looking at?" He thrust an incredulous finger at her. "Hair!" Raven tilted her head. "Hair? Look at your hair." Baffled, she looked down. "What are you talking about?" She trailed off as she caught sight of herself in a nearby puddle. A strange, shimmering aura of gold engulfed her body. Had that been it, she might have shrugged things off. It was not. Her eyes were glowing, no longer red, but a deep teal green, her vibrant pupils nowhere to be seen. It didn't stop there. Her hair, once dark as night, now gleamed a great golden gold, shining as though lit from within. She ran a hand through it, frowning when she found it stiff and jagged, all angry and sharp like someone had run a gallon's worth of hair gel through it. She liked her hair, damn it, not whatever this power-up was. Her mind fizzled out spectacularly. "What the hell?" Naruto scratched the back of his head with a relieved laugh. "I think I might have given you too much chakra when I was healing you." "You think?" She glared up at him, eyes blazing like twin green coals in her skull. "I swear this shit better be temporary." He looked so damn happy to see her, made her flush. "I'm pretty sure it is." A particularly brave bandit lunged at them while she was distracted. Naruto still had her sword, so she reacted accordingly, backhanding the buffoon. That was the plan, at least. The moment her fist struck, the bandit's entire upper torso ceased to be. What remained splattered to the ground in a messy heap. Raven paused, blinked, tilted her head and thumbed blood from her cheek as the ruined remains of said bandit fell at her feet. All right, annoying new looks aside, she could get used to this kind of boost. A wide, toothy grin split her face. "Nice upgrade." "Mama-like." Naruto barked a laugh. "Of course you do," light flashed in the corner of her vision. Naruto yanked her aside, and this time she knew better than to resist, and well that she didn't, because a bolt of lightning struck his chest and launched him away, sending him hurtling into the messy remains of a tent and the wooden wall besides. The crisp smell of ozone lingered, with a fair bit of smoke besides. "Ha!" Vasir's broken bloody face twisted in triumph. "Some schnee he was. Make sure he stays down, boys." Raven sighed. "Really? Really now?" I just calmed him down. "I'll never hear the end of it at this rate." "What are you talking about?" "He's finished." Did she honestly think that was enough to do him in? Raven beamed. "You might want to rethink that." Someone rushed after Naruto into the smoke, mace in hand. Thunk! Raven didn't see what happened in the haze, but she didn't have to. The noise was more than enough. A man went into the smoke, a corpse came out, cut in twain at the waist. Naruto walked through the haze after them, arms swaying loosely at his sides. His eyes burned like balefire, not red, but a cold, brisk blue. Frankly, she would have taken the fox. Because, you see, there was a hole in his chest. She could see it just over his chest, right where his lungs should be. Yet despite that, he smiled at Vasir. All that effort for a single injury, how sad. Raven quirked a glowing blonde brow. "You're bleeding all over, idiot." "I am. He touched a hand to his wound and blinked, mildly bemused. Well, this brings back memories. He rubbed two bloody fingers together. Not used to seeing this much of my own blood before. Been a while since someone put a proper hole in me, you know. As she looked on, the wound closed, mending itself before her very eyes. Much better. He cracked the knuckles of his natural hand, spread his arms wide and smiled at Vasir. Care to try again? Despite her newfound power, Raven found herself edging backward. Uh-oh. He'd gone full schnee on them. You never went full schnee. She'd never seen him lose his temper, truly lose his temper. Willow was one scary bitch to love a man capable of crushing continents. Naruto didn't go berserk, at least not anymore. He grinned when he was angry these days. His smile struck terror into her soul. A man rushed him with a machete. He parried with his metal arm, stepped in and drove a fist through their chest, pivoted, and used him as a living shield against the barrage of bullets that followed, then barged forward. Everything dissolved into a frenzied, bloody blur. The maiden lashed out anew, to which he grabbed another tribe member and kicked them their way. Poor bastard dissolved outright. Vasir howled and flung a bolt at him. He wagged a finger her way and swayed aside, let it sear past, and in a single seamless motion he reached in, grabbed the bolt, and what the actual shit. He did not just do that right there. No way was Whiskers capable of something like that. Naruto definitely wasn't wielding a lightning bolt right now. Certainly wasn't holding it in his hands, absolutely wasn't raising his arm to throw. Seems you lost this. His face split in a savage grin. Allow me to return it. He threw the bolt back her way like a javelin, and unlike him, the maiden wasn't anywhere near fast enough to dodge. The blue bolt clipped her shoulder and blew right through it, arm and elbow and wrist all, blasting the limb clear off her body before hurtling her to the dirt like a rag doll. Vasir howled imprecations and lashed out like a wild animal. A towering fireball struck his smiling face, and his entire body vanished in a towering pillar of flame. Something snuffed it out. Raven never saw what, only a sudden surge of golden light. Naruto walked right through it. So this is what it's like to fight an enraged spring maiden. He tilted his head with a frown. How lackluster, Raven snorted. Vasir twitched. What? My fiancée would still run circles around you. Naruto feigned a yawn. Then again, she's a fully realized maiden and you're just... He gestured at her, the motion ripe with contempt. Mediocre. She froze him solid, for all the good it did. A crack etched itself through the iceberg, and he emerged with a smile bordering on a sneer. Not bad. He planted both hands on his hips and leaned forward, grinning from ear to ear. Want me to praise you? Her face drained of all colour. You're not human. You're not. You've changed. What are you? In a word, karma. He turned his head aside and flexed his metal arm, conjuring a bladed implement. Also your death. I wonder what it's like killing a maiden. Vasir's mangled gaze sought her out to no avail. Why her then, huh? Why go so far for this Branwen bitch? He shrugged. I'll be the first to admit Raven's a pain in my ass. She's rude, cruel, bit of a bitch, really. Hey! Suddenly he smiled. But she's the aunt to my daughters, and Summer would be sad if she died. What does that mean? I means you're done for. He started forward, heedless of the mud sucking at his shoes. I do not take sass from insects. Insect? Vasir struggled upright on her good leg. I'm the strongest being here. A beetle is still an insect. No matter how loud, it might scream. Why you? Naruto didn't laugh at his own joke. Raven almost wished he would. Anything was better than that infernal smile, the ugly curl of his lip, that look that made her feel like nothing and it wasn't even fixated on her. His head tilted ever so slightly and the temperature plummeted. Are you done throwing your tantrum now? No. Vasir stomped a foot like the child she no longer was. I am strong. Stronger than you? If that were true, I wouldn't be standing before you now, would I? Silence fell over the camp. Tell you what. Naruto shucked his bloody coat, revealing the black vest beneath. I'll give you one more free shot to prove your point. But if you waste it, Vasir unleashed hell. Fire and ice, wind, earth, and lightning. She threw everything at him. He vanished into the storm. Miss Maiden. Only to walk through it, body bleeding smoke, and seized her by the wrists. Has this ever worked? Vasir whimpered. Boot! Naruto heels snapped up with and struck Vasir's chin with an audible crack, sending her rocketing into the air. The rest was all a blur to Raven. Naruto reappeared well above and behind the false maiden, fists clasped high over his head. An almighty explosion rocked the tribe, bringing with it a blinding flash of light. By the time it cleared, Vasir was in the ground. He'd planted her like a turnip in the dirt. Buried her beside her, he reached down, grabbed her by one leg and ripped her loose, dangling her upside down as one might a freshly picked vegetable. "To be fair," he rumbled, "this is far from the worst decision you made today." A shout went up from the stragglers. "Protect the boss." Raven side-eyed them. She could feel Naruto's power in her veins. Unlimited power, running hot, ready to be let loose at her command. She had but to direct it. Well, all right then. Raven intercepted him and threw herself at the nearest surviving bandit, completely overshot her target, and ended up hitting another instead by virtue of pure luck. She kicked him clean in half. Blood everywhere. Damn it. She wiped her face with a sigh. His better be something I can turn off. She was not a blonde unnatural or otherwise. Thank you very much. Bullets pinged harmlessly against her aura as she waded into the fray, but it almost felt like there was another layer beneath it all. Something shielded her, protecting her. Omen whisked to and fro with peerless poise and speed, ripping great rents in the tribe with every slash. What was this? She felt stronger, faster, better, and she couldn't understand why. Well, I'll be. Naruto actually pulled it off. And to think only took you nearly dying. She balked. Kurama? Why can I hear you? Because he flooded you with my chakra, you bird buffoon. It's a miracle you're still standing. I should help, don't bother. It's over. She looked back to find Naruto dangling Vasir by the throat, her arms and legs hewn away at the elbows and knees, leaving her with little moth and stumps. He held out a hand, finger tensing into a honed point, but stopped short of obliterating her. Any last words? She gurgled wetly. I'm sorry. I'm sure you are, given hindsight. Unfortunately for you, I'm not. His gaze slid sideways and found Raven at the last. Do you want this? Raven went still. What? Earlier you said you wanted power. Here you go. He dangled Vasir her way. This is your chance. Hurry up. She'll die from blood loss if you take too long. She balked at on him, eyes wide. What are you saying? You know full well. That's right. She already knew. He was offering the maiden to her. The last woman in a maiden's thoughts gained her power. If she was the one to kill Vassar, something that would let her stand on even footing with Willow, if this new transformation didn't put her there already. But it would make her a target. Quite possibly the target, given which vault she'd have access to. Not just for Salem, but Ozpin as well. There could be no hiding something like this from the old man. He'd notice perhaps not the moment he laid eyes on her, but sooner rather than later. Naruto had all the resources of the SDC and Atlas to keep Cinder's power safe and secret. She had no such luxury and would struggle to control the power at first. Someone on Team STRQ was bound to notice. But the power! If she was strong now, how much stronger would she become once she had the might of a maiden added to her reserves? Would he finally look at her then? Would he notice her? Would he even care? Make your choice. She's fading fast. There wasn't enough time. She couldn't decide. Can't we just keep her alive a little longer? We could. He granted her a grave nod, which in turn allowed her to relax briefly, only for his next words to steal it away. But we won't. Why not? His eyes met hers and the very world itself seemed to darken momentarily. Because she killed you right in front of me. She doesn't get rewarded for that. Raven winced as a hot flush raced up the back of her neck. I got better, though. You did, he squinted at her, which means you and I are going to have a long conversation as to how, but for now I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. He threw Vasir down. Choose. The faunus rasped a laugh where she lay. You idiots, do you think this is over? She'll get to you, the same way she got me. Raven realized what she meant long before Naruto did. You drew us out here for a reason, didn't you? Vasir granted her an ugly grin. Why do you think I attacked Mistral? I knew you'd come running. Naruto quirked a brow. Were you trying to die? Not die, distract you. Raven froze. No, Vasir sneered at her. It's nothing personal, Branwen. You were always a pawn. That's all you'll ever be. Naruto shrugged one shoulder, unconcerned. Your semblance going off? She closed her eyes and focused. No, everyone's good. Which was somewhat concerning in and of itself, come to think of it. What was that old witch up to? Then we're good. Naruto didn't seem inclined to care. They can handle themselves. I trained them myself. He looked back to the dying Faunus woman. I don't know what you and Salem intended to achieve here. You were clearly bait of some sort to lure us out. It wasn't bad, I'll admit, and you did a good job getting me riled up. But it's over now. Raven dithered, torn between power and purpose. Why did she have to choose? Could she not have both? Do it, Vasir sneered, blind to her internal struggle. Kill me, and she'll hunt you all over Remnant. There will be no peace, no rest, no mercy. Naruto raised a hand, ready to do the deed if she wouldn't. You want her or not? She looked to him. Should I? I can't answer that question for you. It's up to you, the path that you choose. You've got to do something, so what'll it be? It was the straw that broke the camel's back and made her decision. Omen slashed through the air and buried it in Vasira's gut. It's nothing personal, dear, she crooned softly, throwing her words back at the Faunus. You're just not worthy of such power. Wrenching the blade in the wound, she drew a pained cry from the dying maiden. But I am. Putting all her weight on the blade, she forced it through the girl's back and leaned close, leaving her forehead mere inches from her. So I will take what is mine. And you, well, after today, no one will even remember your name. Her old friend spat in her face. I'll see you in hell. Salem can't be... Raven reached down, grabbed her by the head and twisted, snapping her neck. Naruto made an annoyed noise. Pretty sure she was going to say something important there. She rolled her eyes at him. Does it matter? Not in the long run, I guess. She looked back to Vasir's corpse. Guess her last thoughts weren't of me. Naruto frowned. They should have been. Everyone of age here is dead. We saw to that. Raven scowled, feeling disheartened, cheated, even. Then why don't I feel Fuck! Vertigo hit her like a sledgehammer all at once, sending her crashing down on a knee. Distantly, she became aware of Naruto's voice calling out to her, his hand on her shoulder. She barely heard him. Eyes stinging, soul singing, ears ringing. All of her senses burned and she found herself lost in the haze of sorcererous sound she couldn't make heads or tails of. If Naruto's chakra was gentle, this was the antithesis. It was elemental chaos incarnate, the first touch of spring, the bitter bite of winter, the searing heat of summer and the ominous chill of fall. The dying dregs of Vasir's soul became a part of her, and in turn, she became something greater than herself. Try telling that to her poor body. It didn't take to the maiden's power well. Like any invading force, it sought to repel it, fighting viciously against it. Aura mingled with chakra, which in turn now seethed with magic, a wild and heady mix that left her pulse pounding in her ears as her body struggled to contain it all. Sweat beaded upon her brow, hot, then cold, then hot again now, as she broke out in a wild fever. Pain, fire, agony! Her legs buckled completely and crashed backward, convulsing, teeth chattering, clicking together with a painful clack. Make it stop! I can't do that. Naruto dropped down to his haunches and crouched down beside her. Oh, you have to ride it out. But bastard! She forced the word out through convulsions. You knew this would happen. I had my concerns, but don't worry. You're tough. You'll survive. He knelt fully beside her and took her into his arms. Frantic, she latched onto him, desperate to have an island of peace in the storm. There, there. He laid his chin atop her head and traced slow circles across the small of her back. You'll be all right. Coddling. For some reason that embarrassed her more than anything else. She wasn't accustomed to being seen in such a vulnerable position, let alone held in one. Why did it have to be him? Why the one person that she'd fallen for? Why couldn't she stop loving him? Her new power held no answers for her. Eventually her seizure subsided and her tremors went with it. Better? Yeah. She took a deep breath but couldn't bring herself to pull away. So she laid in his arms instead. Naruto quirked a brow at her. You gonna get up? Sin snuggled closer. Don't wanna. Lazy bird. Idly she glimpsed her reflection in his eyes. Oh good. The whole green-eyed blonde bit had worn off for now. She was back to her normal self again, or what was left of it. Crimson flames bled from her eyes. Closing her eyes, she looked to the ground. Now what? Now you live your life. He shrugged a shoulder. Ozpin will be delighted to have a maiden on his side. What about you? He blinked, gone quizzical. What about me? Raven slapped his chest. Why don't you want anything from me? Should I? You should. Annoyed, she smacked his hand away and stumbled to her feet. The strong take. The weak have no choice but to serve them or die. And are you weak, Raven Branwen? Hell no. I won't let Ozpin use me. She reached across herself with and gripped her left elbow with her right hand, looking away. I'll master this. Will I be worthy of you then? Shame flooded his face. You're a pain in my ass. Hey! But I like to think we're friends. You don't have to prove yourself to me. Yes, she did. Because she wasn't good enough. I don't want to be friends. I want you. Something sparked across his visage. Then his face closed down as he collapsed his arm. I can't give you what you're asking for. Why not? Everyone in Team STRQ is moving on. Summer has you, Ty's all but given in to Goodwitch, and Crow has that bunny bitch of his now. I know, a hand waved when he made to protest. She has a name, but that's not the point. What about me? What do I do? The tribe was the one thing I might come back to, but it's gone now. I killed these people for you, sacrificed my past to you. It's ashes, no, less than ashes. I gave it all to you. Her voice peaked when he didn't answer. What more do you want from me? What do I have to give you to make you see? You don't have to give me anything, he chided her softly. And we didn't kill everyone. A faint, reedy cry rose from the rubble. Raven perked up and followed the sound, kneeling to clear some debris away. The sight there stole her breath away. If only because it shouldn't have been possible. Yet there she was. A baby, not quite a toddler, stared up at her as she peeled a sundered roof away. A dirty, emaciated girl, more or less winter's age, wrapped in swaddling clothes. Unbidden, she found herself reaching for the little one and sweeping her up into her arms. It was a perfect fit. The fact wasn't lost on her. She doesn't even have a name. Naruto prodded her. Then give her one. Vernal sounds like a good start. She held the kiddo close. I'm sorry for shouting. Don't be sorry. Be better. Raven looked away, idly cradling the babe against her bosom. After today's debacle, only the full maiden was left unaccounted for, and she wasn't so foolish as to tempt fate or Crow's semblance on that front. It was dangerous enough having one maiden that Oz didn't know about, but with this, only one maiden was yet unaccounted for. And once they were found, her heart skipped a traitorous beat. Would he protect them as he had her? Would he care? Or... Her lips betrayed her thoughtlessly. I think I love you. The words washed over Naruto in a rush, and he left blinking, frowning now. You don't love me. He gave his head a shake. I don't think you even know what love is. She made an angry noise in her throat, but he didn't give her the chance to challenge him. Look, I know you and Crow didn't have the best upbringing here, so I'm gonna let that slide. That's no fair, she glowered at him. I want to know what it feels like. Just once. I'm not the person to ask. Take it up with Willow. She cocked her hip at him, trying to rile him up. Scared? He shook his head again, setting his bang swaying. You'll have to do better than that. His scroll rang, diverting his attention. He snatched it up and held it to his ear, then frowned. Honey? There you are! Willow's voice came through loud and clear, easily enough for them both to hear. Watts couldn't get a hold of you, so I asked him to activate the tracker in your scroll. I couldn't contact you with that freak Storm. Naruto made an annoyed noise. Clever bastard. He is, isn't he? Is Raven still with you? He looked her way. Yes? Grand. Put her on. Raven paled and shook her head. Too late. He handed his scroll off to her and made her take it. Willow's voice was the darkest seduction. So, Birdie. To her credit, the Schnee matriarch kept her voice low for both their sakes. Naruto couldn't hear what was said between the two of them. Frankly, she was glad he couldn't. By the end of it, despite her spluttered denials, her face was burning a bright pink. Take your woman back! She flung the scroll at him, forcing him to catch it or risk having it dashed against the ground. Are you there, dearest? I am. Put me on speaker. He did. As such, Raven found herself with a front-row seat to the discussion that followed. How do you feel about her? Judging by his expression, that was a complicated question. She drives me insane. Willow's pleased noise had Raven gulping. Not the answer I thought I'd hear. And what do you want me to say? She's not right and he head. None of us are. We're all mad here. He scowled. Ha ha, very funny, Miss Alice in Wonderland. Do you find her attractive? He cast a quick look over his shoulder. Raven scowled at him, red in the face until he looked back to his scroll. We get along like a house on fire. So did we at first, remember? I won't make you bed someone you don't want to. Just bed the bloody birdie if you want, or don't. It's all one and the same to me. I'll consider it. However, Raven perked up, but he flung forth a hand to forestall her happy cry. I have several conditions. Name them. 2 years. He raised 2 fingers. Raven made another strangled noise and tried to interject, but this time he didn't give her a chance to get her bearings or find her mental footing. He jerked his chin toward little Vernal, already sound asleep in her arms. If you prove to me that you can care for and raise that girl, I'll consider it. Fine. 2 could play those games. Speaking of kids, Summer might be pregnant. Naruto twitched explosively. Excuse me. That'll teach him to ignore her. Raven saw her chance and took it. Remember when I said she was sick? Well, she's been having an awful lot of morning sickness lately. Naruto made a strangled noise. You mean she's... Raven took visceral pleasure in his shock. Yep. He swayed where he stood. But that means... Yep. She's gonna have a kid? Yep. Willow made delighted willow noises through the speaker. Finally! Why didn't you open with that? Well, it looked like Summer had gotten what she wanted. Good for her, maybe. But what about her? Raven, Willow crooned through the scroll. Be a dear and cut a portal back home to me, would you? He and I have some business to attend to. She grabbed his wrist and yanked him backward. Her mouth met his savagely, stealing his breath away. For a moment, just a moment, she felt him return her efforts and bite her lip. His normal arm looped around her, holding her close while careful not to crush baby Vernal between them. Then he shut down. 2 years, she promised, releasing him with an effort, not daring to test him. I won't forget. Her piece said, she cut a portal for him. Naruto paused, glanced back. Be seeing ya, and stepped through. Raven glanced down at the infant still nestled in her arms. Now then, what the hell am I going to do with you? Crow was going to laugh his ass off at this. She knew it. She just knew it. Vernal cooed happily. 0.0. Willow awaited Naruto on the other side of Raven's portal, clad in a flowing white evening gown that instantly drew his eye. Oh! She took on look at his bloody, soaked suit and smiled. You're back early. Had it been her alone, he would have collapsed into bed then and there. Life was seldom so simple. Kaylee Belladonna was waiting for him with her, sat atop his bed, thankfully more clothed than his wife-to-be. Unlike her, she was in a right state. Her eyes were wet. Can we talk? Naruto blinked. He blinked hard. Am I gonna like this talk? Willow shushed him. Just hear her out. She's had a terribly long journey. Kylie didn't leap into his arms. She jumped him, buried her head into his chest and began bawling, babbling really. Gira and he and she and I saw and hey now! Ever the gentleman. He took her by the shoulders and guided her down to a chair. What's wrong? She told him her story, her tale of woe as an indulgent Willow looked on. Gira would never look at her the way she wanted, but someone else might. Chapter 35. I'd understand if you'd rather not talk about this. There's always a chance that we might remain in ignorant bliss. Tilda Fear. A simple soul crow was really starting to hate Mistral. To be fair, he'd never had a particularly high opinion of the kingdom in the first place, but said opinion had only plummeted in the years since he left. Sure, he'd been born here and all, but there could be no denying Anima was rotten at its core. Even as the second largest continent in all Remnant, there'd always been something indefatigably wrong here. Maybe it was the crime syndicates. Maybe it was the bandits, significantly less so now that the Branwen tribe had been obliterated last month, and Sis wasn't saying shit about that. Or maybe the fact that this kingdom was home to some of the worst species of Grim imaginable. Seriously, Port would have a field day here. A field month. Even a year. Or maybe, just maybe, it was because of Salem. She'd always had her eye on this place. It was far from Vale and Ozpin, wasn't anywhere remote as Vacuo, and unlike Atlas, it didn't have an army at its beck and call. Lionheart did his best, really he did. But old Leo had always been more bark than bite, and they all knew it. No surprise, she'd sunk her claws in here, which led him to his current predicament. An empty vial crunched under his foot, drawing a grimace to his lips. He lifted his boot back and found the ground littered with them, scorched and burnt. Picking one up, he brushed ash and grit from it and squinted at the emblem therein. Sure enough, the sinister sigil of a spider stared back at him within its web. He crushed it in his fist, grunting briefly as aura sparked. It didn't make sense. He knew little Miss Malachite. She gave Oz good info. Reliable info. Sure, she was a criminal, but she was small time. She'd helped them save lives, albeit for a price. This wasn't her jam. Why would she make shit like this? Folks were calling it AMP, shitty name, but Mistral wasn't exactly known for clever shite these days. And the results? Those spoke for themselves. He turned his gaze back to the dilapidated building where he'd found the vials, noting the burnt bodies, the blood on the walls, what was left of them. Someone or something had torn this place down, burned it nearly to the bedrock, and salted the ashes. It was the 9th he'd found this week. The number was rising. Yet for all that, there was no police presence. No cops, nothing. What the hell were authorities doing? Did nobody notice? Did no one care? This drug, no one had paid attention to it for the longest time. They'd known about it, even seen hints of something similar during that brawl in Menagerie. But this, a drug that boosted semblances, sounded great on paper, right? More power was always a good thing. It wasn't. Using the damn thing killed you eventually. Semblances were meant to grow and evolve naturally. This, whatever it was, forced that evolution, and kept forcing it. Until finally, well, he turned his gaze back to the burned-out building and looked at the bodies within once more. Some of them were small. So very small. That could have been Cinder or Winter. Gods forbid this drug find its way into Atlas. Or Vale. He was going to be a dad. Real soon. And he didn't want this anywhere near his kids. Saturn would agree. Hell, she'd be with him right now if she weren't up the spout. Just the thought of exposing their little girl to this made him shudder. Well, shit. He blew out a breath. Oz ain't gonna like this. Hell, he might not even be able to help, busy as he was. Not enough huntsmen, he said. Never enough huntsmen. Damn it, this was important. Didn't they understand? Ty wouldn't listen. Raven was busy. And Summer. Nope, don't involve Summer. Her condition was far too delicate at the moment. He didn't dare. And if all Oz wouldn't act, well, he knew who could and would in a heartbeat. He knew who got shit done. So he made the call. 0.0. Naruto squinted into his scroll. You want me to do what? I'm asking for your help, all right? Crow's raspy voice came through. Don't make me say it again. I won't, he reassured him, sinking back into his chair as he planted both elbows onto his desk. I'm just not sure what you want me to do here. You practically run the SDC these days, don't you? You've got to have some serious manpower. Well, I need it. Resources help people. Typical Crow, right to the point. He wouldn't ask for aid unless it was serious. Pride wouldn't let him. He tapped 2 fingers against the desk. This is about that semblance booster, isn't it? Maybe. Crow! All right. He could practically hear Raven's brother flailing his arm on the other end. It is, and it's big. I'm up a creek without a paddle here. People are dying. Kids are dying. The metal fingers of his false hand tightened around the scroll. You didn't mention children the last time we spoke. Got your attention now, didn't I? Kaylee's head poked up over the sofa, golden eyes gleaming. What's this about kids now? He waved her down. Crow heard it, blast him. What was that noise? Heat crept up the back of his neck. Kaylee's crashing here for a little while. Nothing to concern yourself with. Trust it to the buzzy bastard not to miss the byplay. Her and the big guy have a falling out. Naruto looked to Kali. Her ears drooped. I'm not at liberty to say... Up they went once more. You lucky dog. Down again! Lucky? Naruto glared bloody red daggers at the scroll. In his peripheral vision, he was dimly aware of Kali taking her chance to flee as his voice rose. How am I lucky, Crow? I'm up to the gills in bills, my mansion is full of chaotic little gremlins, and now I've apparently taken in a cat. How is any of that luck? You say that, but still can't believe you and Raven had a kid. He bridled. We did not have a kid, she adopted Vernal. Still counts. You really think she can raise the squirt by herself? 2 could play that game. But she isn't alone, she has you. Good old Drunkle Crow. Crow made angry noises. Hardy ha-ha. You still saddled Raven with a kid, told her to wait 2 years, and buzzed off. Kind of fucked up. For the love of... I'm just saying, whatever issues are between the 2 of you, there are none. Non-existent or otherwise, you need to sort them out. She hasn't said anything to any of us about this. Naruto grit his teeth, refusing to rise to the bait. How's Miss Scarlatina? Crow choked. You, not a damn word. What? He twisted the verbal knife with relish. I happen to think Velvet is a lovely name for a daughter, don't you think? Ty seems happy enough with Glinda. Which is why I can't go to him with this. Crow cut in with an exasperated noise. And you know why I can't involve Summer. Thanks ever so much for that, by the way. Morning sickness is a bitch. I know, I've held her hair more than a few times. It wasn't as simple as cutting ties with Raven. Now that she'd gained the power of spring, someone had to teach her how to use it. And who better than Willow? Ozpin still knew precious little, and he aimed to keep it that way. Thai were doing this for her own good. Speaking of wayward birdies, you seen Raven? Naruto hummed. She's busy at the moment. Now about this help you need. 0.0, 0.0. Raven slammed face first into a metal wall. Her body slid down said wall. Result? Humiliation. Get up! Willow lowered her hand, eyes blazing blue flames. You'll never master the power at this rate. Would you rather face Cinder? Nestled in Summer's lap between Cinder and Sienna, Vernal clapped her pudgy little hands and giggled happily. Shit, the Schnee was making her look bad in front of the kid. Raven launched herself at Willow with a snarl. 0.0, 0.0. We'll be in touch. A maid edged into the room as he set down his scroll. General Ironwood is on line 1, sir. She bowed deeply and idly. He noticed her faunus features, a pair of floppy dog ears resting atop her head. He wants to have a word with you, sir. Oh, I just bet he does. He waved her off. Tell him not today. It was only natural that the army had taken an interest in Arthur's advancements. Well, too bad. Neither he nor Watts had any interest in making war. He'd cross that bridge later. Also, she said, young Master Roman has returned. Naruto's brow shot straight up into his hair. Has he now? Show him in. No need. His flamboyant boy sauntered in, ushering someone before him. I'm already here, and I brought a gift. Someone latched onto his leg. Naruto looked down and blinked. He blinked so damn hard, he thought his eyes were going to bulge clear out of his head. When he'd sent Roman to Vale with Nicholas to discuss a dust deal, he'd anticipated many things. Better prices, an odd concession here and there, maybe even a decent haul. Yes, he'd expected many things. This was not one of them. And who are you? The little girl blinked up at him. She said not a word. Not a whisper. Didn't make a sound. Her hair was pink, but also brown on the other side, with eyes to match. It looked like she'd tumbled off a burning ice cream truck. There was soot on her cheek, and her clothes were a mad mix of black and white, but also dirty. And was that the faint hint of ash he smelled? He tilted his head to regard her. She mimicked him, matched him now when he leaned the other way. His lips pursed in a frown. Who is this sassy lost child? He looked about for answers, and finding none, looked back to Roman. Okay, I'll bite. He looked back to the silent urchin, beginning to understand what Roman's so-called gift was. Who are you and where did you come from? The girl touched a finger to her lips. Can you not understand me? She shook her head. So you can then? A nod. You understand what I'm saying, he said for clarification. Am I right? Another nod. She gripped his knee tighter. He raised the limb and, balancing on the other foot, gave it a light shake. No dice. The new girl clung on like a demented spider monkey, grinning all the while. He looked at her for a long moment. She looked right back. For a moment he could have sworn he saw her lips move as she mouthed 2 words. New, Papa. New what? He chided himself for the slip a second later. No, heart be still. Can I have my leg back? I need that to walk around. She shook her head again. Sassy lost child indeed. At his wit's end, Naruto took the only recourse left to him. He reached down, plucked her up by the scruff of the neck, and dangled her before his face as one might a naughty kitten. He expected more smug silence only for her to surprise him again. This mute, nameless, wordless little girl tensed in his grasp, an awful flicker of fear flashing through her eyes, as though she expected violence. Boop. He bopped her on the nose. Don't worry, I'm not going to hurt you. Naruto dangled the girl before him, brandishing her at Roman like a flail. Who is this? The would-be criminal winced. A friend? Is that your final answer? He scowled down at the boy. Then why did she mouth the word Papa at me? Well, she can't speak, so she kinda had to... Naruto stomped, cracking the floor beneath his boot. Neo saw it and whistled. He let her go at the last. Mercifully, she didn't latch onto his leg again. For 3 seconds, he looked down and resigned his right limb to its fate. Roman, this is a child. No, the younger boy waved him on. She's just really short. The strange girl waved silently as he looked back to Roman. Naruto took the chance to pry her off and set her down. And her name is? Trivia. A wince now, as the girl stomped on his foot. Think she prefers Neo these days, though? Another blink followed. And why have you brought her here? Roman winced anew. Well, it's a bit of a long story. Oh dear. Simplify it, please. I adopted her. What? I? Adopted? Her. Roman gave Neo a shake for good measure, weaving the poor girl to and fro. Sage save him from stubborn boys. I can see that, but why? Roman beamed, undaunted. You want me to summarize it again? She had a shit life. I plucked her out of it. Might have pissed off her folks too, so... Bugger. You said her name was Neo. Well, her name is Trivia, technically, Roman supplied hastily. Trivia Vanille, but we can't use that after the, incident. His brow furrowed. What did you do? Roman tried to whistle. Nothing. Roman! Okay. His adopted son made a show of tenting his fingers. I'll tell you, but you can't be mad at me. He was all of an isn't-aunt from spanking him. What? Did you do? Roman coughed into a fist. I was minding my own business. 5 firm fingers descended in a stern chop straight to Roman's noggin. His words cut off with a startled squawk. Ow! The young boy whined a little, rubbing his skull. I was. Nicholas was trying to expand his contacts in Vale, strike better dust deals, you know? He waved his hands as he wove his tale. New money, old money, that sort of thing. So we met with this one family. They said they wanted to invest in the SDC, and you know how Gramps gets about that sort of thing. He trailed off. Neo clung on ever tighter. So we go to meet them, and the meeting was going well. Then this one, he jerked a thumb at Neo, did something that pissed him off. Not sure what, but whatever it was, it made her old man hit her. I took exception to that, and his existence. Tell me you didn't kill him. Nope. Roman smacked his lips audibly. Didn't kill him. Thank the sage for small mercies. That wasn't something he could explain away. Just burned down his house and stole all his lean. Also got Neo out of that shithole right quick. Naruto found himself simultaneously proud and disappointed in the boy all at once. Such a strange feeling. And where is Nicholas now? Spinning a cover story for the press. Roman answered promptly. At least someone had their priorities straight. It would have been a pain breaking Roman out of the slammer. Well, it's not as though we can send her back to Vale now. He looked to Trivia. Do you have any other living relatives in the other kingdoms? She shook her head fiercely and clung tight to him. I told her she could stay with us. Roman put in. Naruto rounded on him. Did you now? Yes. Try as he might, he couldn't fault the boy for being a good Samaritan. He probably would have done the same in his shoes. Fine. He relented with a sigh, raising his voice to speak over the subsequent whoop of joy that followed. She can stay here a while, until she gets back on her feet. But next time warn me before you pull a stung like that. I'm sure Willow was worried sick. No, she'll be cool with it. Cool with what now? A voice called from the stairwell. D-Mart. All 3 of them looked up. Willow glided down the stairs, one arm resting against the railing. She looked tired but awake enough to be up and about. Her piercing gaze swept over each of them in turn before finally fixating on Neo, who immediately let go of him to stare at her in return. Well, at least she listened to someone. Ah, a small smile bloomed across her face. So this is the one Raven warned me about. Raven! She'd been in here. Damn sneaky birdie with her portals. Neo looked to Willow with wide eyes. Then she held out her arms, hopped once in place for good measure. Roman coughed into a fist. She wants a hug. Naruto tutted. And you speak Neoese, how exactly? No, his ward countered. I'm damn good at reading body language. Willow's face softened as they quarreled. In the end, she did far more than give the tiny girl a hug. In a single seamless movement, the Winter Maiden swept down, dropped to a knee, and seized Neo, practically dragging the startled girl forward into her chest. Neo tensed in surprise but didn't fight. When it became clear Willow wasn't about to release her, she snuggled in happily, all but burying her face in her bosom. Lucky little lass. Oh, please. You get to experience that heaven every other night. Let the kid have her moment. Neo certainly looked like she was having one. She'd latched onto Willow even harder than him, and she didn't look keen on letting go anytime soon. Her shoulders quivered once, but she didn't cry. She lacked the sound for it, if not the tears. There, little one, Willow cooed. The past is in the past. You're safe here, you have my word. The Schness keep their promises and pay their debts. This she said with a brief look his way. Don't we, dear? Another one? Were they honestly contemplating adopting another runt this late in the game? Neo turned teary eyes on him. Ugh, his resolve folded like a house of cards. If she can stay. Roman slammed a fist into the air. Yes! Victory! Willow was the one to release her first. Roman. The redhead stiffened. Yeah? That makes her your responsibility. See to it that this girl gets a bath and a proper change of clothes. She considered her hair a moment longer. I'm told you're skilled with illusions. Have you given thought to disguising yourself? She was still speaking when Neo's long locks shimmered into white, those mismatching eyes becoming a wintry blue. Well, she cooed, that certainly works. Naruto whistled. Neat trick. It's certainly striking. The disguise lasted as long as the girl's concentration, then faltered. We'll work on it. How about it, Neo? He crouched down before her. Do you want to stay here? She nodded but didn't speak. Do you know who I am? Another nod. Why wasn't she talking? Was Roman telling the truth? His squirrely son coughed into a fist. She's really is mute, boss. The inner do-gooder in him could hardly let that be now, could he? He laid a hand on her throat, frowned a little as he found the problem. Yep, definitely internal. It wasn't so much that she couldn't speak, but rather she lacked the capacity to. The block was as much mental as it was physical. Without thinking, he reached right in and he plucked it out. From there, it was a simple matter of encouraging her body to repair the damage. He'd regrown the eyes of others and even brought Guy himself back from the brink of death. He might not be able to regrow his lost arm for reasons he couldn't wholly understand, but he could do this one thing for her. Neo gasped, coughed, choked for a moment now as her body regrew that which she'd lost. Her hand flew to her throat as her eyes flickered wildly, and for a single wild moment, he thought she might try to attack him. He stood his ground, wondering if she would take that little blade at her hip and punch it through his throat. It never came. Neo stared at him for a long moment. Her lips worked wordlessly to no avail. So many emotions flitted through her, almost too much for him to comprehend. It's all right? He laid a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. You're perfect just as you are. Her eyes watered. Crap. Had he said something wrong? Who, boy, Roman rasped behind him. Probably shouldn't have said that, old man. You pressed the trauma button. I did. Neo sniffled. His inner parent twitched. Willow hummed softly. It was a dangerous sound. Tell us about this Vanille family. I think it's high time I paid them a little visit. Roman rubbed his hands together. What kind of visit we taking about here, Pops? When Naruto hooked a thumb over his throat in response, he barked a laugh. Knew you still had it in you, shitty geezer. Naruto scowled. I'm not too old to tan your hide, young man. Movement in his peripherals. It was his only warning. And then, quite simply, Papa! Neo jumped him. 0.0. Arthur's scroll rang and was retrieved at once. Speaking. Naruto's voice emerged from the other end, harder than iron, colder than steel. I want you to find a family for me. The Vanille family. They're supposedly well-connected in Vale. His moustache twitched in amusement. Looking to adopt again? No. Isn't it remarkable how a single word could convey such menace? I need to send a message. Or what did they do? Upset my newest daughter. Watts chortled softly, mind whirling. Oh, ho, 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 that's a dead man. A brave dead man, but a dead man nevertheless. Outwardly, he said otherwise. Most unwise of them. Might I make a suggestion? I'm listening. Rather than humiliate them, we should make an example of them. A poignant pause. And then, what are you suggesting? Arthur looked to Alma playing cards with Penny. Scorched Earth. Chapter 36. Scorched Earth, eh? Can't say I feel sorry for the bastards. Remind me not to tick you off, Schnee. Don't call me that. Tilda, you've changed things. Arthur's scroll rang and was summarily retrieved at once. Setting it to his ear, he tilted his head. Speaking. Naruto's voice emerged from the other end, harder than iron, colder than steel. I want you to find a family for me. The Vanille family. They're supposedly well-connected in Vale. Indeed they were. Rather infamous bunch, them, and not at all for the right reasons. His moustache twitched in amusement. Looking to adopt again? No. Isn't it remarkable how a single word could convey such menace? I need to send a message. What did they do? Upset my newest daughter. Watts chortled softly, mind whirling. Oh ho ho ho. That's a dead man. A brave dead man, but a dead man nevertheless. Outwardly, he said otherwise. Most unwise of them. Might I make a suggestion? I'm listening. Rather than humiliate them, I dare say we ought to make an example of them. A poignant pause followed. And then, what are you suggesting? Arthur looked to Alma, presently playing cards with Penny. Scorched earth. 0.0. The air in Vale smelled like opportunity. And ash. Naruto took a deep breath as he stepped off the airship, only to cough slightly as the scent settled in his nose-charred wood, lingering smoke, and something distinctly fried? He wrinkled his nose in mild distaste. Huh, burnt wood. A little bit of despair. And is that fresh noodles? Willow Schnee, ever the picture of poise despite Vale's summer humidity attempting to undo the pristine elegance of her white fur-trimmed coat, took a delicate inhale before humming in agreement. Tragedy, desperation, and corruption, she mused, her icy blue eyes scanning the city streets beyond the docking platform. But yes, I do believe there's a noodle stand nearby. He groaned dramatically, shoving his hands into the pockets of his jacket. Man, I knew Atlas had its problems, but no good ramen stands. That's just cruel. Before he could lament further about the culinary deficiencies of his current residence, the steady clack of a cane against the tarmac cut through the air, drawing both of their attention. Ozpin, the headmaster of Beacon, strode toward them with his usual measured pace, the rim of his ever-present coffee mug just barely touching his lips. His eyes, sharp despite their weariness, flickered between Naruto's wide, mischievous grin and Willow's composed, knowing smirk. His cane tapped against the ground in rhythmic precision as he stopped just short of them. Ah, the professor said, voice carrying the weight of 1,000 untold stories. Mr. Uzumaki, Miss Schnee. What an unexpected surprise. Naruto rocked back on his heels, clasping his hands together with an exaggerated air of nonchalance. Reasons. Ozpin's lips twitched, amusement flickering in his gaze as he tilted his head ever so slightly. Reasons. Yep, reasons. Ah, I see. Reasons. A moment of silence stretched between them. Somewhere in the distance, the sound of traffic, the murmur of voices, and the faint sizzle of something cooking on an open flame filled the air. Ozpin took a long sip of his coffee, exhaled through his nose, and regarded Naruto with the patience of a man who had long accepted the absurdity of his life. Mr. Uzumaki, Vale is currently experiencing a string of, shall we say, unfortunate incidents. Would you be so kind as to refrain from adding to them? Naruto placed a hand over his heart, gasping in mock offense. Oz, you wound me. Headmaster Ozpin, he corrected, arching a brow. Puffed formalities. Naruto waved a hand dismissively before flashing a fanged grin. But come on, I'm not here to cause trouble. Well, he glanced at Willow. Not much trouble. He means to say, Willow interjected smooth as cream, our visit is purely professional. No chaos. No disasters. No explosions. Ozpin's gaze flicked toward Naruto, who looked away with a whistle. That last part felt oddly specific, he noted. A precaution. Willow's lips twitched slightly. Experience has taught me well. Hey, Naruto huffed. I can be subtle. Ozpin hummed into his coffee cup. I'm sure. A gust of wind carried the distinct scent of ash and oil, stirring the edges of Ozpin's coat as he considered them both for a long moment. Then, with a soft sigh, he nodded toward the city. Very well. Since you're here, I assume you'll need accommodations. If you're offering, I won't say no, Naruto chimed cheerfully. If that includes a meal, I'm doubly in. And if it includes a drink, Willow added, a knowing glint in her eyes, I do believe I'll be far more inclined to tolerate his antics. Ozpin noticed the telltale absence of a little bundle of joy, most noticeably not in her arms. Winter isn't with you. Winter feigned a titter, but her eyes were sharp, briefly flashing with maiden fire. She's still much too young to travel. Father is watching over her. He was more than happy to do so. Ozpin smiled faintly, already turning on his heel. In that case, I believe I know just the place. If you would be so kind? As they followed him toward the city, the sounds of Vale's restless heartbeats surrounded them. Laughter spilling from open storefronts, hushed conversations in alleyways, the occasional distant siren wailing through the streets. The scent of food and fire intermingled with something unspoken in the air. Change, opportunity, And for better or worse, the arrival of one Naruto Uzumaki in Vale was bound to make things interesting. Would I be kind? Absolutely, Naruto beamed. Will I? That's a different story. Ozpin sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Please try not to burn down the city while you're here. Willow, without missing a beat, smiled brightly and tilted her head. No promises, Tilda. Naruto grinned, throwing an arm around her shoulders. That's the spirit. You're finally embracing the fun side of life. Please don't encourage her, Ozpin muttered, taking another long sip of his coffee. Willow smirked, unbothered as she gently peeled Naruto's arm off her. Oh, Headmaster, you wound me. You make it sound as though I need encouragement to indulge in mischief. You don't, Ozpin replied dryly. Naruto snickered. Man, you've really got our number, huh? It's my job. As they passed through the docking district into the city's main streets, Vale unfolded before them in its chaotic splendor. Neon signs flickered in the distance, casting their glow onto wet pavement. A group of huntsmen in training argued over a mission posting outside a bulletin board. Street vendors hawked their wares, from dust-infused trinkets to skewers of sizzling meat. The energy was electric, thrumming beneath their feet like the pulse of something alive. Naruto stretched his arms behind his head, eyes flitting from the bustling crowds to the towering skyscrapers in the distance. Gotta admit, Vale's got a charm to it. Feels more, real than Atlas. Willow hummed in thought. Atlas is built on efficiency and order. Vale is built on survival. There's a certain beauty in that, I suppose. Ozpin glanced at her, something unreadable in his expression. A poetic observation, Miss Schnee, and not an incorrect one. Naruto waved a dismissive hand. Yeah, but let's focus on the real issue here. Where's this place you're taking us? My stomach's about to stage a revolution. Ozpin chuckled, motioning toward a side street. Patience, Uzumaki. You'll find that good things come to those who wait. Bah! You know that ain't my strong suit, old man. The headmaster smirked. Oh, I'm well aware. As they turned the corner, a small, unassuming storefront came into view, a traditional-looking tea house tucked between two towering modern buildings. A wooden sign, aged but well-maintained, bore the name The Jade Dragon. The warm glow of paper lanterns illuminated the entrance, and the faint scent of spiced broth and freshly brewed tea wafted through the air. Willow raised an eyebrow. Not your usual cafe, headmaster? Ozpin's smile was almost mischievous. I like to surprise people. Naruto inhaled deeply, his face lighting up. Oh, now we're talking. This place smells amazing. That would be because it is amazing, Ozpin said as he led them inside. A hidden gem, known only to those with refined taste. Naruto shot him a skeptical look. And yet you found it. Ozpin merely took another sip of his coffee, eyes twinkling over the rim of his cup. As they stepped inside, the soft murmur of conversation and the soothing melody of a guqin playing in the background greeted them. A server, an elderly Faunus woman with kind eyes and sharp intuition, greeted Ozpin with familiarity before guiding them to a private booth in the back. Willow settled into her seat, crossing her legs elegantly as she examined the menu. Aged whiskey, imported from Mistral? Now that is a surprise. Naruto, meanwhile, was practically vibrating with excitement as he scanned the food selection. All right, I'll take 5 bowls of the house special, 3 orders of dumplings, and ooh, do you guys do refills? The server chuckled. For you, my dear, we'll make an exception. Ozpin sighed, setting down his coffee. This was a mistake. Willow smirked behind her menu. Oh, but headmaster, you knew what you were getting into. At point 0, 0.0, the flames had barely died down at Crestwell Manor. Trivia's parents' home, if one could still call it that, was now little more than blackened stone and dying embers, a charred monument to someone's very deliberate revenge. The once proud estate, with its grand archways and pristine gardens, had been reduced to skeletal remains, the acrid scent of smoke and scorched earth lingering in the air. Naruto squatted by a scorched railing, idly poking a bit of burnt wood with a stick. The brittle fragment crumbled at the slightest touch, collapsing into nothing more than soot and ash. He whistled low. Well, someone really didn't like these people. How observant of you, Willow deadpanned, arms crossed as her icy gaze scanned the ruins with practiced detachment. Her coat, still immaculate despite the soot-filled air, fluttered slightly in the lingering heat waves rising from the rubble. It seems we might not need to take vengeance on them, after all. They're likely already dead. Before Naruto could retort, a sharp giggle echoed from the nearby rooftops, light and mocking. Naruto's head snapped up just in time to catch a flicker of movement, a blur of pink and white disappearing behind a chimney. "You saw that, right?" he asked, pointing toward the retreating figure. Tiny Gremlin looked way too pleased with herself. "Ah," Willow mused, tapping a finger to her chin. "Seems Neo's been getting bolder." No small surprise there. After all the trouble he'd gone through to restore her vocal cords, it only made sense that she'd find the thrill of life again. Naruto squinted. "Kid's like 10, 11, 8, I think," Willow corrected, arching a brow. "But she's a prodigy in petty crime." Naruto let out a low whistle, shaking his head. "Man, they start 'em young here." But before he could dwell on that, Willow's gaze drifted further into the wreckage, her expression shifting. "Also, is that Cinder?" Naruto followed her line of sight. A few yards away, standing just beyond the smouldering ruins, was a girl. Young, barely a teenager, but with eyes like molten gold, smouldering with something unreadable. Her hands were clenched into fists at her sides, shoulders taut with an emotion too complex to name. She wasn't mourning the wreckage. She was studying it. There was something unsettling about her stance. Not grief, not shock, but satisfaction. Beside her, a teenage Sienna Khan stood with arms folded, her faunus features sharp and unreadable, though her tail flicked once subtle but telling. Roman Torchwick lounged lazily against a lamppost nearby, puffing on a cigarillo like he didn't have a care in the world. Naruto's instincts, honed through years of battle, prickled. He exhaled slowly. "So," he muttered under his breath, "we just stumbled into the origins of several future villains. Should we be worried?" Willow tilted her head, considering this for a beat. "Not yet." Naruto side-eyed her. "That's not exactly reassuring, Snow Queen." "Worry implies inevitability," she replied coolly. This is merely a possibility." Naruto snorted. "You and your semantics." But even as he said it, his gaze lingered on the group in the distance. Cinder's eyes burned with something dangerous. Sienna radiated quiet authority, her presence commanding even in stillness. And Roman? Roman looked bored. But that was the kind of boredom that belonged to men who thrived on chaos. He'd been sullen these last few days, grousing about his lack of a semblance, but here and now he looked alive. Proud of his earlier handiwork, no doubt, and prouder still to see that the Vanille family had been wiped out. He really was raising a band of little monsters, wasn't he? "You ever feel like we're watching history being written?" Naruto murmured. Willow smirked. "History is written by those who survive it." A shimmer of light on his right side was his only warning. Neo bounded up to him, holding a small metal object. He smirked and tousled her hair. "Oh, what you got there, kiddo?" She offered it, and he accepted the burnt thing happily. It looked like a pin, small, metal, with a bit of circuitry besides. He hefted it Willow's way, curious. "You recognize it?" His fiancée noticed the engraving and sighed. "Unfortunately, 0.0.0.0. Of course, it wasn't just about a fire, or vengeance, really, even if the latter was sweet, cold, and brutal. Naruto's so-called reasons for coming to Vale had quickly unraveled into something deeper, something rotten at the city's core. The underworld of Vale didn't just lurk in the shadows, it thrived in them. And now, it was bleeding into places it had no business reaching. Like Lady Browning's preparatory academy for girls. A school meant for the privileged, untouched by the grime of the streets. Or at least that was the illusion. But illusions only lasted so long. Lady Beat's genteel invitation had been anything but. The so-called benefactress of the academy sat before them in a parlour draped in wealth-high ceilings, imported silks, the soft clink of expensive porcelain as she set her untouched teacup down. And yet, for all the opulence, the woman herself was a different kind of presence. Her eyes, sharp and polished like glass, reflected nothing back. Empty, cold, the kind of gaze that saw too much and felt too little. "The Academy," she had explained, voice smooth as a well-aged wine, "has been experiencing an alarming number of incidents involving unregulated enhancements." Naruto blinked. "I feel like that's a fancy way of saying someone's juicing up your students." "You are not incorrect," Lady Beat conceded. "Miss Malachite's influence has reached our halls." That made Willow tense. "Lovely," she murmured, fingers tapping against the armrest of her chair. Miss Malachite doesn't just run an empire of vice, she cultivates it. If her drug is spreading to students, that means she's expanding. Naruto frowned. He'd dealt with criminals before, but this was different. This wasn't just some back-alley operation. This was someone methodically tightening their grip on the city, one thread at a time. He exhaled through his teeth. Let me guess. We gotta get involved. Lady Beat smiled, but it was a distant thing, polite and insincere. The kind of expression people wore when they'd already decided you were useful. I would be ever so grateful, she crooned. Kurama scoffed. Oh, I just bet is on that, they agreed. Naruto leaned back, eyeing her. You don't seem the type to ask for help, unless you're out of options. I am out of options, she admitted, tilting her head. Or rather, I have exhausted the legal ones. Willow arched a brow. Meaning? Lady Beat took a measured sip of her tea before setting it down once more. Meaning that Miss Malachite has grown bold. She drummed the fingers of her free hand against her desk, tapping out an irregular cadence as he looked on. Too bold. I cannot act openly against her without consequences that would be most inconvenient. Ah, Naruto nodded sagely. So you want us to be the inconvenient consequences? Willow sighed. I hate being someone else's attack dog. Lady Beat's lips twitched at the corner. I would never use such crude terminology. Of course not, Willow said dryly. Naruto stretched, rolling his shoulders. All right, so we find the supply chain, we smash it, we send a message. Easy enough. Crow ought to appreciate that. Lady Beat's smile didn't waver. Oh dear boy, if it were that simple, I wouldn't need you. That gave him pause. Huh? He scratched the back of his head. So what's the catch? The catch, Lady Beat said, folding her hands together, is that Malachite's influence does not just exist in the underworld. It is woven into the very fabric of Vale. She may rule in Mistral, but she has connections here. A well-woven where she sit at the center, alliances, people in high places who need that supply. If you destroy her operation without forethought, you will not just be making an enemy of a crime lord, you will be disrupting a system. Willow exhaled. Wonderful. A delicate operation, then. What's like those problems? Lady Beat's fingers tapped against her teacup. I knew you would understand. Naruto frowned. He wasn't opposed to breaking things, especially when the things in question were criminal empires. But this clearly wasn't a simple smash-and-burn job. He'd always hated those kind. The sort you couldn't just smash through with brute force and righteousness. When you couldn't just be strong, you had to be smart. Couldn't just be deserving. No, you had to worthy. He glanced at Willow and heaved a sigh. Think we can do this without making the whole city implode? His bride-to-be smirked. If I'm involved? Yes. Lady Beat's gaze lingered on them for a moment before she stood, smoothing out the delicate fabric of her dress. Then I will leave the details to you. She turned toward the door, pausing briefly before adding, Miss Malachite is not known for her forgiveness. Be careful. Naruto grinned. Lady, careful is my middle name. Willow scoffed. That is absolutely false. Lady Beat merely chuckled as she left the room, the soft click of her heels fading into the distance. Naruto sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Okay, so what's the plan? Willow stood, already adjusting her coat. Step 1 is gathering intel. Step 2 is making sure we don't get killed in the process. Step 3 is... She considered for a moment before her smirk sharpened. Well, let's just say step 3 involves making life very difficult for Miss Malachite. Naruto grinned. Now you're speaking my language. 0.0, 0.0. Crow's scroll rang. He fumbled for it blindly. Oi, that was fast. Wait, you're doing what? 0.0, 0.0. This, Naruto groaned, narrowly dodging a chair as it shattered against the wall behind him, is not how I wanted to spend my afternoon. Miss Malachite's so-called negotiators weren't the talking type. They were the break-your-face-first, ask-never type. The underground casino had devolved into an outright war zone, upended tables, shattered glass, and unconscious bodies piling up in a chaotic mess of bad decisions and worse aim. Naruto weaved through a pair of muscle-bound goons, slipping past their attacks with ease. Seriously, was there a memo I missed? Since when did hired thugs get combat training? Willow, ever composed even amid the chaos, twirled between blows with the effortless grace of a woman who was absolutely enjoying herself. Her rapier danced like silver lightning, every strike precise, every movement fluid. A smirk curled on her lips as she sidestepped a wild swing, carving a glyph into the floor with her heel. I don't know, love, she mused, flicking her wrist. The glyph erupted, a wave of ice freezing a cluster of brutes in place. I find this rather invigorating. Could have fooled me, princess. Naruto grunted, catching an incoming fist and twisting the attacker's arm behind their back before flipping them straight into a poker table. Flatter me more, darling, Willow trilled, lunging forward and slicing through the air with deadly precision. Naruto smirked, cracked his knuckles, and vanished in a blur only to reappear directly in front of the queen of the casino herself, Miss Malachite. Perched elegantly on a crimson velvet throne, she remained utterly unruffled by the carnage surrounding her. Her jade-green dress draped over one leg as she leaned forward slightly, watching him with an amused, unreadable expression. Naruto grinned, tilting his head. Yo, Miss Malachite arched a brow. Mr. Uzumaki, I presume. The one and only. Naruto spread his arms theatrically. Now how about you tell me who's supplying that little semblance-boosting drug before I get really cranky? Miss Malachite sighed, steepling her fingers. Mr. Uzumaki, you storm into my establishment, tear apart my lovely decor, and demand answers. Her lips curved in the barest hint of a smirk. I see your charm is just as legendary as ever. Naruto's grin didn't waver. I try. Miss Malachite exhaled through her nose, shaking her head. You Atlesians really do lack subtlety. I'm not from Atlas, HR corrected, eyes narrowing. And I don't like repeating myself. Her gaze flickered toward Willow, who stood a few feet away, blade still at the ready. And you, Miss Schnee? Are you also here to play hero? Willow shrugged elegantly. I'd hardly call it playing, dear. Miss Malachite chuckled, the sound smooth as silk. Oh, I think you'll find the answer to your question quite shocking. Naruto's gut twisted. I don't like the sound of that. Then the lights flickered. The doors slammed shut with an ominous, mechanical hiss. The temperature in the room shifted, air crackling with an energy that wasn't just electricity, but something alive. From the upper balcony, a shadow stirred. And somewhere not far from there, a girl with electric blue veins whispered his name. Schnee! Malachite tittered, hiding a smile behind her fan as a broken humanoid figure staggered forward, clutching their stomach. Fascinating, isn't it? The power this drug provides. What was it you've taken to calling it? AMP? I prefer ASP myself, as in artificial semblance power, but I'm not the one created it. So who am I to judge? She shrugged a shoulder and made way for the poor wretch, grinning ear to ear. We have not perfected it just yet, but even one of Merlot's imperfect specimens has their uses. A wink their way caused him to shudder. Just think. All that power packed in such a small package. And when it goes... She mimed an explosion with one hand. Willow hissed, utterly outraged. What have you done? The self-proclaimed spider merely hummed. I've changed the game, dear. I'm moving up in the world, and I'll drag humanity with me, kicking and screaming if I must. And still the drugged-up horror lurched closer, laughing under their breath. Schnee! Schnee! Kill the Schnee! Naruto leaned back despite himself, horror momentarily triumphing over common sense as he shrank away from the abomination. It was like looking to stare into an inferno. He could just barely glimpse someone or something burning blindingly bright as though. What was that? A human? A faunus? He couldn't be sure, but they didn't look right. Like someone had jabbed one too many drugs into them, or worse. Even worse, they were smiling, too hopped off on those foul substances to realize what was happening to them. Hadn't Crow mentioned something like this? Blast marks. Fiery explosions, but no source. Where else could those come from but people, he realized. Test subjects. His throat went dry. Repeated doses of that infernal amp forced one semblance, that which was bound to their very soul, to grow and grow and grow until their body could no longer contain it, and like a bottle that built up too much pressure. Oh, that was bad. Tata Tilda! He whirled just in time to catch Malachite vanishing down a hatch in the ground. Snarling, he lunged after her, intent on diving after her. Willow yelped a warning. There's no time! She was right. The air thickened behind him. The poor wretch's body bulged outward, crackling, scrawling across their skin, crackling with fiery light. They doubled over, clutching at their pallid skin, eyes aglow, lips parted in an animalistic laugh, body breaking down before their very eyes, shafts of unholy light shining through their being. Die, Schnee! Die! Ah, hell, Naruto muttered, dragging a hand across his face. Don't tell me she's about to... Willow swore and flung up a mighty wally of ice to shield them as best she could. It wasn't enough. He knew it wouldn't be. Knew they wouldn't escape. His eyes slammed shut. His ears popped. Way too close. No time. React. Kurama. Whirling, he grabbed his fiancée as he ducked, summoned his partner, wrapping golden chakra around him and Willow both. Well, that he did too, because a second sun erupted in the room. The world burst into flame.